Jamie Mills.
Here.
Kay Levy.
Here.
Jack Cadenhead.
Here.
Amy Coclaser.
Here.
Claudia Willis.
Here.
Consent agenda. All of the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at board meetings will be approved by one vote unless any member wishes to consider an item separately. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval of the following items. A, the minutes of the June 12, 2014 meeting, minutes of the June 23, 2014 special meeting. B, the financial reports of activity accounts and treasurer's report. C, encumbrances and changes in the following funds. General Fund, fiscal year 14, number 1105 to 1849. 2, General Fund, fiscal year 15, numbers 1,000 through 1139 and 50,000 through 50,042. 3, Child Nutrition, fiscal year 14, numbers 2 through 27. Child Nutrition, fiscal year 15, numbers 1 through 27. D, fundraisers. E, resignations of Linda Deering and Carla Kuehl. And F, contracts and agreements.
I was absent for all but one action item on the June 23rd special meeting, so I would just ask that we consider that separately.
Okay.
And I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, save the June 23rd, 2014 special meeting minutes.
And I'll second that.
Roll call.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Amy Coclaser.
Yes. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the June 23rd special meeting.
I'll second that. Roll call.
I'm sorry, was that Claudia?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it was both.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Amy Coclaser.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
And Jack Cadenhead.
Abstain.
Number 4, introduction of guests and public discussion by those who requested audience.
Yes, we have one.
Hey.
Mr. Stephen Choate. Stephen?
Because I didn't see it on the agenda piece, we were talking about the administrative report.
Yes.
So I understand there's some discussion that we had about Pleasant Grove side. And so just want to let you know, I found out, I guess, a month ago that what we anticipated a few years ago for a VOAG was to turn out to you, that would come to fruition. So I just wanted to, if there's a discussion about the opportunity there at PG, we're certainly interested to try to help facilitate that. I just remember as an observation, our first year in the annexation, we had an increase in enrollment. Well, we probably only brought 50 kids or so.
Probably.
But others did. And so we participated in several meetings that year. And then I think it was the following year, maybe it was last year, but Jack, you can help me remember. There's another board meeting that we noticed the decline in enrollment. And from the excitement that happened that first year about the opportunities we'd have in the new high school and the facilities, and then last year when everybody seemed to vanish, I remember you made the comment that, hey, where are they? People have left. We're at the table trying to discuss the opportunities that we'd have for I think at the time it was the new single school site, so we were having to modify that program. So the point is that for 50 kids, that made a big difference. So I've been putting the feelers out, trying to find opportunities to help increase the enrollment at Seminole and trying to help use the site. But I know it hasn't been fun the last couple of years. Just wanted to keep my ears to the ground and make sure that there's an opportunity there. I know I have a brother that's interested in part of the property, but wanted to try to see if there's more opportunity for the north side of the school site for getting more kids and stuff. And so anyway, so I know we just have a couple minutes. Just in your administrative report, that's just to let you know we're of interest there to try to help Pleasant Grove live on with Seminole. But that's the effort.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment.
All right. Number 5, administrative report.
Yes.
Do you have a comment on that?
You didn't sign up.
I know I didn't. I'm really concerned about the security of the buildings.
Okay, well,
If you need something there.
yeah, we'll talk about that.
You'll leave me there.
Okay. Okay, we've received approval for our E-rate grant that I spoke about last month. The grant will allow us to increase our bandwidth from 100 megs to a gigabit or 1,000 megs per second. If it works according to plan, we'll have 100 megs per building with 300 megs dedicated to wireless district-wide. So we're going to go from 100 megs for the entire district to each building having 100 megs plus 300 megs that'll be available for the entire district. Hopefully this will really allow our laptops to work better as far as our mobile labs. David and I have a meeting tomorrow morning with Suddenlink to try to finalize the plans on that. And hopefully it'll work out the way that we've anticipated it will, and we'll be in good shape on that. So we're excited about that. Our summer projects are progressing well. We've installed new carpet in most of the classrooms at Wilson and in selected rooms at other sites. We're enclosing a breezeway between the outdoor classrooms and the main building at Wilson. We have completed concrete projects at the various sites, including the north and south ends of the high school, where we're installing new benches and tables for student use. We constructed a changing room in a multi-handicap class in the middle school. We are soliciting quotes to repair existing asphalt parking lots and pave new ones. We're installing new doors on the Northwood Gym. We are partnering with the city to pave the walkway from the west side of Northwood to the parking lot and dress up the playground. We are refurbishing the locker room showers in the stadium, repairing the pole vault runway at the track, replacing the football field goalposts, and we just completed painting in a high school gym. And at the request of BLS pre-K teachers, we've built walls between the adjoining classrooms, and of course we have the normal painting, floor waxing repairs going on. I've probably forgot a few things, but just a lot goes on in the summer. Since we've determined the Pleasant Grove property is not conducive for use for our education program, it's probably time for us to start considering other uses for that property. I know that Danny Williams has talked about that a little bit of the possibility of maybe using that. I haven't heard from him since the primary, so I'm not sure if he's still planning on moving forward with that. It's really difficult for us to secure the site. We have, we have Mr. Green that stays in the rental house there, but I think he probably goes to bed pretty early. And we just really we've had a lot of issues with people breaking into it. We'll go out there and find mattresses, where we haven't found anybody actually living in it, but it's just really, really difficult for us to watch it like we'd like to. And, if you kind of look down through the history, you don't see very many cases where when a school closes, that the school that it annexes to the building, they, keep that building. Usually it'll always be sold to somebody, and so I think it's probably time for us to start considering, what we might want to do with the property if we want to, divest ourselves of it. And I know we have a little bit of interest. Mr. Schultz's brother has expressed interest in maybe purchasing the south part of the property. Danny Williams, of course, has expressed interest in maybe securing the property to do some type of a juvenile center for, students that maybe have had issues that bring them in and kind of work with them, and I'm not sure where he is on that. But if you have any thoughts on that, well, if you kind of get them to me, and I'd like to kind of look at what we might want to do with that in the future. We're moving forward with our Career Pathways Day on August 7th. And hopefully this will be the first step in the formation of a great partnership with the area industries, which will help ensure relevant learning by our students. We've got some speakers that have come in that we've got kind of lined up. We're trying to get the day scheduled. We have so many people that are interested in participating in it that it's made it more difficult to schedule our day. So we're going to wait and see how that works out. But I'm really excited about the interest that our area business and industries are showing in that, and I think it's going to be really great for our students in the future. Of course, if you've been keeping up with the standards in education, we're in limbo right now when it comes to the Common Core. Of course, the legislature did away with the Common Core, but there's a lawsuit right now stating that wasn't constitutional in the way that was handled. At the State Board of Education meeting, the last meeting, they really kind of tabled it because they want to wait and see what happens with that lawsuit before they proceed going back to pass objectives, which we haven't had fully in place since 2010, because it was 2010 when this was changed. Okay, we have a structural engineer, Wendell Williams, coming tomorrow to assess the beams in the old gym. That was one of the things we noticed in the report from Renaissance, that it was in the structural report from 2011, but I hadn't noticed it being in there, and then they referenced it, and so we better go check that out. And Ed and I went and checked that out, and we decided to get somebody to come in and look at that. It's, neither one of us are experts in that, but we need to to look that over and see if there's anything that we need to do there to ensure that the building remains safe. I really kind of would have thought that Renaissance would have maybe followed up on that and had one of their structural engineers look at that, but they didn't. They just referenced the report and went on. So we're going to bring one in and pay them to do it. And we're really excited to have William Williams, and he's Willie to me, as our school safety and compliance officer. And Ed's done a really nice job on this. He's working with the city of Seminole to authorize Mr. Williams to work under the city's commission rather than trying to establish our own police force. Because for him to be able to wear a uniform and do the things that we would like for him to be able to do, we either need to start our own or partner with the city and work in that way. And Ed's been a perfect liaison for that, for us to have somebody that can help us get that established. He's also working with the Seminole County Sheriff and the city to see if he can procure a police car for us so we can have that for his use. And then following a suggestion from one of our board members, Ed worked with the Chief of Police, Shane Marshall, to arrange for officers to go by the elementary schools and complete the reports. Now, they have laptops in their cars, and so they're going to pull in the parking lot, do the reports, and after they complete the reports, then they go into the building, speak to the principal, students, faculty, anyone that's there before they leave. So they're going to have a presence there just simply by every time they have to do a report, they're going to pull in the parking lot, do the report, then enter the building and kind of, show everybody that they're there and then leave from there. And then also, the Seminole Police Department is providing a radio so that Officer Williams can have direct contact with the dispatch and with the department. So it's working out really well. The timing of having Ed on board at the same time we're bringing a board of police officers is really, really good. It's going to work out well.
Is he going to be mostly at the high school, or
We're going to try to get
everywhere?
him all over the place, but he'll be at the high school and the middle school the most, because that's where we have the majority of the students. We have 750 in that area, and when you look at the fact that BLS is there too, well, that's, of course, he'll concentrate most of his time. But he was trained along with Terry McGinnis to be one of the great teachers, which is I think that he and Terry were the only two that were trained to do that, and so he has the capability of doing that with our elementary teachers. It was talks about gangs and that type of thing. He's a real solid guy. Really is. I was really happy when we applied, and we had some really good applicants. Every one of them would have done a nice job. We couldn't have gone wrong with any of them that applied. But I'm real pleased with the one that we've decided to bring on board, and I think he'll do a really nice job. I think he'll do well. Any questions?
When do you anticipate the Northwood sidewalk being?
Well, since we're working with the city on that, they want to do some things with the playground first. Okay. And what we've done with them is that we've asked them to set up the work and then just bill us for the portion of it that they want us to pay. So that's really going to be up to them as to when they decide to do that. But hopefully it'll be done pretty quickly.
Great.
I have a question with regard to our third graders that participated in the reading program this summer, and not just to focus on them, but especially those whose families kind of felt like they were hanging in the balance, as we were dealing with the legislative session, making changes kind of to what they felt like was their fate this year, understandably. Do we know when those test scores from the summer reading program and the tests that they took at the very end, when those will be made available to parents? It's my understanding that the principals and maybe some of the teachers have those, but that the parents aren't going to have those till they actually meet with the committees.
I think that's the way it's set up. I think part of that is because some of the scores were late coming in, and that's one thing I visited with Ms. Cheatwood about today, was that next year I'd like for us to set that up where we can have the meetings with them earlier, because as a parent, you don't really want to be stuck, or a child, you don't want to be stuck not knowing if you're going to be in the third grade or fourth grade. That's so we want to try to have those meetings as early as we can. And I think it's probably my fault I didn't relay that message well to Ms. Cheatwood that we didn't want to delay that. And so I think she understands now what I want.
Even if those scores are tough to understand for some parents at first, even if they had some time to kind of process them and look them over and pull their questions together for that committee meeting, I think it would still help if they could get some of that raw data. Right.
I think we need to get as much to them as we can, and we need to have those meetings as quickly as we can.
Sure.
Just simply because, there's some of those students that are, waiting, not knowing
Yeah.
if they're going to be third grade or fourth grade. And-
Really hanging in the balance.
Yeah, and we don't want
it feels like.
to, mess up a student's summer by not knowing which grade they're going to be in.
I
So
also
we'll get that straight.
had just a couple of requests, and one would be, I'd had a couple of calls and questions to me
Mhm.
that I wasn't able to answer, and I thought this would be a great idea. If we were able to, on our website, to be able to put current information as to who is teaching which grade at each of the sites for the coming year. I know it's not teacher assignments and telling anyone, which class their child is going to be in, but it kind of lets them know if those decisions have been made for each of the sites and have been finalized. It kind of lets them know which teachers are going to be teaching at which grade level, which people have been hired and in which positions at each of the sites.
Right.
And that might be nice for them to be able to see on the website right now.
That's a good idea. And we have it set up where each of the principals have the capability to go in and control their particular site where they can put that in there. So I'll get a hold of the principals, and of course we have some that are out right now.
Oh, sure,
Uh,
but just kind of the start of the year sort of stuff. I think that would
Yeah.
be very
Well,
helpful. They would find that
Yeah,
interesting.
the sooner we can get that in there, the better.
Good at making their requests early in the school year for the entire year. And I thought that if our parents could know, maybe to get a list or something at the beginning of the year, this is what you're going to be facing for the whole year in terms of expenses, that sort of thing, fundraisers your children are going to be participating in. You're going to have a fall book fair, a spring book fair, and roughly this is when they're going to fall, that sort of thing. Those that are having to budget for that sort of thing could go ahead and get that on their calendars and be looking forward to those.
That's an excellent idea. And since we do get those approved well ahead of time, it's not like we don't know that they're coming. Just a matter
And
of
there
getting
would
that list
always
to
be
them.
new things that would
Right.
kind of jump in at the last
Right.
minute, but it would help them to know, as grandparents and other relatives are offering to help with things, they could suggest some of those items as well.
Right, it's a good idea. Kind of like having a syllabus, you don't necessarily stick to it completely, but it gives everybody a good idea of what's coming.
That's right.
Yep. Very
And
good.
that's all I
Good
have.
suggestions.
Anyone else? All right, consider and take necessary action to approve activity fund accounts and activity fund sub-account expenditures for the 2014-15 year.
That's something we do every year, and this is a list of what they've asked to be approved for that's in that notebook, if anybody would like to look at it. I don't think there's any changes from last year, and any time and that's one thing Ms. Turner does a really nice job of. Anytime that she finds if someone comes through and wants to spend it on something, she checks to make sure that it's approved, and if it's not approved, she says, nope, can't till we get that approved. And so she stays right on top of that.
And I think 7 or 8 years ago, we went through and cleaned up a lot of the old
Yes.
kind of dead accounts that hadn't had activity in them
Right,
for years.
right.
I make a motion, we approve the activity fund accounts and the sub-account expenditures for the 14-15 year.
I'll second that.
Kay Levy,
Yes.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Amy Coclaser,
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Consider and take necessary action to approve the school lunch procurement plan.
It's before the policies.
Yeah.
In your book, it should be under miscellaneous.
So this is just,
I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
Any questions?
oh, okay.
I'll make a motion, we approve the school lunch procurement plan.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Amy Coclaser.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Consider and take necessary action to approve the use of the 1,080-hour calendar if necessitated by school closures due to weather.
Yeah. This is something they have allowed us to start doing a few years ago, and it's been pretty helpful. This last year it was real helpful.
I move for its approval.
I'll second. Sorry.
Roll call?
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Coclaser.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Were you wanting to say something, Claudia? Okay.
I like the eagerness.
And Madam President, at this point, I would ask that we proceed somewhat out of order and take up the individual policies rather than just the wholesale changes that are proposed. And not for any other reason than it might make a little more sense just to look at the individual changes first and deal with those, and then kind of sweep everything into the overall changes, unless anyone has an objection to that.
So, starting with number 10.
I would just suggest moving ahead to number 10. We would just have to remember to go back to
Go
item
back to
number
9.
9 after 14.
I would put it in here. Okay. So
Mrs.
we're-
Rose will remind us.
All right, so we will go on to number 10, discussion of and possible action on an amendment to the Seminole School handbooks concerning wireless communication devices.
Okay, you should have proposed changes, and then if, we kind of did this last month, but I just went ahead and printed off what's in the handbook now, so you can have that if you want to check. I highlighted the headings on each of them.
Sorry.
Get them all out.
So this is the current one?
This is the current one before the changes that the administrators, the changes that were in item 9 are the changes that I just asked the administrators to, like they always do. I really don't get involved in their handbooks. I just asked them to look at it, decide what changes they wanted to make, and then that's what's in your packet, the ones that they
And
wanted
that's
to make.
what's highlighted in the packet?
Yes, what's highlighted in the packet are the changes that they made. But I couldn't tell with that if it had everything, so what I wanted to do, because I wasn't sure which order we were going to take any of this in, and so I went ahead and printed off pertinent policies and highlighted the headings so you could see where we are, and that helps you see what was added with what the administrators wanted to put in there, and then also with the proposed changes that we have that Jack's requested too.
I have two for myself. Did I get one? I kept two for myself.
So as it stands right now, all that we have is the paragraph that begins, students are allowed to use wireless telecommunication devices, with a second area that goes into what the penalties are for violation. And if we look in what the proposed changes under item 9 are, you see that same paragraph that say students, that begin with students are allowed, but there's also that new paragraph of upon reasonable suspicion. So what So it looks as though on the high school one, at least, where it says wireless telecommunication devices under 9.
You see under 9.
When I say under item 9.
Oh, item 9.
In our binder.
Talking about the changes
where
that
there's
the
the
administrators-
changes to the
Mhm.
policy that, we'll say that Mr. Pritchard's proposing, just to keep it straight, or the administrators are
Okay.
proposing, or we have these versions. We have
Right.
the
Right.
existing, we have Jack's proposal, and then we have the new version
For this
that was
year.
just proposed.
Right.
Okay.
So it's confusing, but you have what we have now, what the administrators have proposed, and then what Jack proposed. So you have three different things.
I'll say, y'all recall at the June meeting, I had a proposed policy, and we discussed it in depth, and kind of based on that discussion, I made some a couple of revisions to this, and I brought them tonight, and I emailed them to Coach Pritchard. Essentially, the only kind of revisions were that I'm proposing were to change the hours. Instead of, I think I had from 7:30 a.m. to 3:15, change it to 8 a.m. to 3:10, because that's more aligned with our school day. And then also remove the prohibition on use on transportation, like outside of the school building, like, you know, going to activities within the purview of under the supervision of the district.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had, if it helps any, that I had that the basic differences of the two is that on the one that the administrators had is that there can be used during lunch, passing periods, and for educational purposes. And I wasn't sure on that, Jack, because you'd mentioned to me something about that, but then you didn't include it with the latest version.
Right. I mean, my thoughts are that during the school day, in between 8 and 3:10, they should be off.
Okay, even if they wanted to use it for educational purposes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best, I mean, my opinion is, you know, if the teachers thought they could be useful for educational purposes, you know, something like research or whatever that might be, you know, they could go to the administrator, have it part of their lesson plans, get it approved. That's my thought on that.
Okay, do we have that in there?
That's
where
my
they do
reason.
I think what it ends up being, perhaps, or what I could see it end up being, is more of a, if you finished your test, you can get on your phone.
that? Yeah, that's what it's been. We don't want that.
And I think that's what realistically, and I think it's easy to say, oh, that's educational purposes, or I hope they're looking something up for class, or that's what I want them to be doing. But how do you monitor that it really is being used for educational purposes in the classroom?
Yeah.
And I just think cell phones are, I mean, they're around, they're everywhere, but it's a terrible distraction. It's a terrible distraction in court. That's why we're fussed at all the time for having them in court, and we're not allowed to. I mean, they take them away from us when we go into the federal building. They make us put them away in a locker. They don't want them on our persons. Terrible distractions. As far as educational purposes, I could see maybe the calculator, but I also think calculators are so easy to have and provide and obtain without having to use one on a cell phone. And while everyone in this day and age may have a cell phone, they don't all have the same kind of cell phone or the same data plan or the same ability to get on there. And I think we really do, as far as maybe not putting an actual end to cyberbullying, but taking a nice stand that it's not going to happen while they're at school if we're not letting them get on their cell phones. They can possess their cell phones, but in my opinion, I just don't know that they need to be on.
I agree. I've thought about this a lot, and I'm glad we had the discussion in June, because I've thought a lot about the cell phones. And I listened to Mr. Dean. He talked. And he said they're a huge distraction. They've added a lot of drama to the school day. I know that personally. I see some shaking their heads. And so I feel as a board member, and of course I'm a former educator, I think it's our job to do away with those distractions as much as possible for the staff, to help the staff do away with those distractions. So I would like to see them off. I haven't seen a lot of maturity, and I can say this about adults too, about turning them on and turning them off and on and off. They just, if they ring or someone texts them, they're going to look at it. So if they're off, I mean, when they turn it back on, that text will be there. So I don't understand the reason to have them on during class changes and stuff.
Right. According to, this was kind of what their decision to do this. And my understanding is that they were spending so much of their time taking away cell phones because they were using them in passing periods. And so it was kind of taking away their focus of their leadership because it was being spent taking away phones, taking away phones, taking away phones. And so that's, according to what I heard from Mr. Dean, that was the reason. Because he's pretty hard line on things, but he wanted us to change the policy when we did because he was tired of taking up cell phones on a regular basis. But he's having other issues, with the cell phone. So there's not a
perfect
best
answer.
way
There
to do it.
isn't
But I will say this, that the day after we had our last meeting, I attended a digital forum at OSU, and that's all they talked about was bring your own device. And they said if any school that says they don't have bring your own device is kidding themselves because that's what everybody has and that's what everybody's going to, and that is a norm now. So just be aware that if we take this step to not allow them to use these, that we will be in the minority nationwide.
And I think we may be getting very close to the point of students using their iPads and their own laptops from home and everything in the classroom. And I think we'll have to look at all of those policies at that point. I don't know that that's what they're doing with their cell phones right now in these classes.
Well, I will say that I think that, because I'm a proponent of using the technology. I think if we don't teach, and that's one of the things I talked to Tom Van Ark, he's one of the leading authorities on digital learning in the country, and he was one of them that spoke at the digital forum, and I had a conversation with him over lunch, and he said that it's really what he sees as our job is to teach good cell phone, if you will, etiquette. He said because he sees it and I see it and you see it with adults that don't do a good job of using their cell phones with the proper etiquette. And he feels like that it's our job to teach students when it's all right to use it, when it's not, and help them become adults that understand the proper use of it. And I see that, and one of the issues I see too is the iPads, because we're going to have more and more students. And what I foresee, and I said this last month, I foresee a time pretty quickly to where most of the students have, I guess you call it a hybrid. And I saw just yesterday on the news that that's the best selling cell phones now are those that are hybrid between the tablet and the cell phone. And I think more and more students are going to have those that are fully capable of being used in a constructive way in a classroom. Our job is to make sure that they're used constructively and that we find ways to use them in a way that they need to be utilized. If we just use them as a reward because they finished their work, then we're misusing that. We need to make sure that they're actually used for good, legitimate purposes for us to use those in the classroom. And I kind of, of course, we'll do whatever the board desires, but I really don't want us to close the door on using those devices the way they should be used, because we have a great tool right at our disposal that we can teach the kids how to use them properly. They have access to so much information, but our job is to control that and ensure that they're using it in a proper way.
Can I ask who used these, proposed changes that the administrators put together? Was that a collaboration between high school and middle school?
Between Mr. Dean and Mr. Rigney.
Okay.
Right.
And that's a consensus, and you all are basing your decision on information you've gathered from, obviously, teachers and stuff. So that's a reflection of.
Well, I would say that, as Mr. Pritchard said, the cell phone can be a really great tool if it's used properly. Now, we obviously have had issues where they're not used properly, and that was not the intent of necessarily opening up the policy before. And I wasn't the assistant principal when there was no cell phone policy, so I couldn't speak to, the amount of time, in an assistant principal's day that was spent on cell phones. it will be an issue whether we stay with a kind of somewhat open policy or not. We're gonna have cell phone issues, and that's fine. I mean, we will deal with that. I like the ability for our teachers to use that tool. You know, I really don't want to close it off to where we say, you know, there's no exceptions. But like you said, as a part of a lesson plan, something that's been approved at least, that our teachers that are, we're starting to get more and more digital natives as teachers now and are very comfortable with that technology. 2 years ago, we had a student that made a PowerPoint on their cell phone, you know, in class. So there are some very good uses. I just don't want to handcuff our teachers to say there's no exceptions, you cannot use cell phones, period, because if they're used in the correct manner, they can be a great tool. A lot of teachers use use Twitter, the clicker system. You know, we used to buy the clickers, the entire, you know, card of clickers where you get immediate feedback from your students. Well, it's free. If you go through Twitter, there's other avenues other than Twitter, but it's automatic feedback if a teacher uses it in the correct manner. And that was kind of the intent of what we put here. We all agree that we want to make our teachers' lives easier. That's a big part of my job, is I want to do what I can to make their job teaching easier. And if that means restricting cell phones, then I'm all for that. I want to do the best we can for our teachers, but both ways. You know, people that are going to use that technology in the correct manner, I would like to see them have that ability.
And I do too.
I completely agree that cell phones should not be a class management tool. You know, it's hey, you know, I finished before everybody else, get on your cell phone.
Right.
And also, it's not in our current handbook, but the headphones and earbuds addition to, it kind of goes hand in hand with the cell phone policy. That's a huge part of the distraction, would be the headphones, which we put on here that we don't want to see them. We don't want to see them out. We don't want to see them hanging out their clothes. It's a huge issue. It's a safety issue. But, you know, we're going to enforce however you guys decide.
That's good to know. I think, I mean, and that's great news about the grant that the megabytes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, gigabyte.
Increasing 1 gigabyte. And I mean, that's, I love the technology progress that we made. And, you know, when it comes to calculators and math, well, we can make sure our teachers have calculators where students don't even need to use their cell phones for calculator, or, you know, a research paper or something like that. Well, we're making progress in our technology, and kids can get a pass to the computer lab to do their research. We don't need, so they don't have to pull out their cell phones to make a PowerPoint. They can do it on Microsoft PowerPoint in their computer lab.
Anybody else? Okay, then.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
I'm talking too much, but part of what we added was the upon reasonable suspicion portion of this. And, you know, there's obviously been I think it's a Supreme Court ruling about searching cell phones. So that's something that's kind of fluid in here. We may not want to put that in right now until we know, because, you know, I don't want to do something that a police officer can't do. You know, I don't want to search. And usually we don't search a cell phone. I was telling Mr. Pritchard the other day that usually if I had an issue with a child's cell phone, I would say, well, can you show me? I would ask them, and then a lot of times they'll show me. But here, you know, we've added upon reasonable suspicion that we can seize and search that cell phone. So I don't know if we maybe want to pull back on that as far as the searching portion of that.
I did a little bit of checking on that because I wasn't sure where we stood, and we always try to stay up with the Supreme Court decisions, and, you know, each year we'll get new ones that kind of impact us. This wasn't specifically about schools, but it was about a police officer's ability to search a cell phone, and the Supreme Court ruled that they can't search it without a warrant. said it was beyond, if they're looking for a pack of cigarette or even drugs or anything like that. It's because there's so much personal data on these cell phones that it's kind of in a category by itself, to where you have to have an actual search warrant before you search a suspect's phone. And so we're going to be really cautious about that. Probably won't be searching any cell phones at this point, because we don't have good solid ground to do that. And we felt like they'd had made a few decisions that kind of opened the door for us to be able to do that. But at this point, I feel like that those are probably closed. And so we'll probably approach it the way that Mr. Rigney's talking about. And most of the time, students will do that. If say, can you show me? Most of the time, I'll do that. But we, at this point, probably won't force a search of anyone's cell phone, just because I don't know that we have the legal standing to do so.
You also have a lot of difficulty in asserting that a student is using their device inappropriately when they're given such breaks between classes and during lunch. And, it's kind of difficult to expect young people to know how they're allowed to use it during these times when they're freely allowed to use it during breaks and during lunch. Yet then in the classroom, it's only for educational purpose. I think you'd have a tough time anyway proving that any way that a child or a student used their phone with a very loose and tolerant policy, allowing them free and unfettered access to their cell phones so often throughout the day, so many breaks.
Well, from my own standpoint, I've deferred to our principals as far as their ideas as far as between classes and the lunch. But from my own personal standpoint, I'm more concerned with the ability to use those for legitimate educational purposes in the classroom. That's my concern. It doesn't impact me though, because I don't deal with it. But it doesn't matter to me if they're on or off as far as that's concerned. I don't have a problem with saying you can't have them during lunch, you can't have them between classes, but I don't deal with that either. My biggest concern is that I don't want us to slip behind the times and not be moving forward in the use of technology, because I think that schools that do that aren't doing everything they can for the students. And I think it's important that we try to find good professional development and good methods of incorporating technology in our classrooms. And if we haven't been doing it well, then that's on us. We need to find ways to teach our teachers how to use that in a proper way, because we have a great tool, and if all we're using it for right now is, okay, you've got your work done, you can entertain yourself, that's not appropriate. That's not what we want. We want good, legitimate use of those, and I foresee the day when our students bring their iPad to where they have that device, their textbook is on it, they're doing their assignments on it, and that's what they carry. They don't have all the textbooks with them. That's what they carry. We're doing that for our, with our advances we're making on our wireless network. We're trying to set ourselves up to where we can support that and have the bring your own device.
And I think bring your own device is fine if we recognize that the school district is going to be having to provide a lot of these kids with those devices, as far as an iPad goes.
And there will be uniformity in that. It won't just be, like you said, one kid has a
Well, actually, the schools that are doing that, they just have them bring it. They don't. It's not uniform as far as all of them have iPads, or they just bring a device that's capable of doing the thing that they need. And the way technology advances, in your cell phone right now, you could have every textbook that you need just in that cell phone. Now typing on it's a little bit different story, but I foresee a lot of changes coming, and that's been coming for some time. And that's really more my concern than anything. It's not because I understand completely us wanting to teach the students how to handle it properly, to run a tight ship as far as our students behaving properly, not misusing the technology that they have. And I think it's difficult when you have statements like inappropriate. What is inappropriate? And so I really see that, but I just from my own personal standpoint, I would like to see us move forward with teaching our students and helping our teachers learn how to utilize that in the classroom. And the fact that we have so many young teachers now, like Wade kind of alluded to, I think we're going to have more and more students that understand how those can be used, and open the door for us to do that. Our challenge, I think, is to ensure that that's the way they're being used. Of course, whatever the board decides, that's what we'll do, but that's just my own personal feelings, and I want us to be on the cutting edge of technology, not sliding backwards.
I certainly do not want to take a tool away from a teacher who could use that in an educational manner. I've taught for a long time, and there's some teachers that hate them, and they shouldn't be allowed in their classroom, and they shouldn't be allowed on, and they shouldn't have to see them. But there are some teachers who do use them and can use them for educational purposes, and they're fantastic. And I don't want to be the one to say, no, you can't do that. They know how to work it. They know what their lesson plan is involved. They know what the kids are going to get out of it. And I certainly don't want to tell them, you can't do that. I would like to see something in there that says that, whether it's a weekly thing or a monthly thing or on these days, I really want the students to be able to pull out their cell phones or whatever electronic devices and be able to use them. I mean, that's their classroom. They're trying to teach something. If they can use the cell phone to teach it more effectively, then I think we should power to them.
And I think we can let them do that if they have a good lesson plan and they have good an activity. All they need to do is let their building administrator know.
Right.
I'm going to be using. You mentioned an activity you do last month that I loved. So I mean, I don't think we're taking it away from the
I think we'd have
teacher
to put it in there, though.
as an educational tool. If they, you mean in the policy?
In the policy, yes.
Right.
I'd like to see something in the policy that says the teachers may get permission to. They can be used
Yeah.
as an educational tool.
I guess that's what I'm kind of fighting for, because
Yeah.
I don't want us to close the door on that, because if we can move forward with technology, I think that's where we want to be.
But that's a lot different than in the hallways,
Oh,
and in
yeah,
the bathroom.
I'm
Yes.
talking about just the
And-
teachers
and I
using it as a
think
tool.
That's what I'm against, because I hear from teachers, they think they're a huge distraction, that they can't get them into class because they're using their cell phones or in the bathroom. They cause all kinds of problems. I'm not against using it as an educational tool. I think, with going to the administrator,
Well, I think,
presenting your lesson.
yeah, see, I think that would be perfect in where they have to be part of the lesson plans, and at the high school in particular, and I think the middle school too, they have to turn in their lesson plans anyway, so it'd have to be in their lesson plan, how they were going to be used, and that opens the door for that. And I will say this, that when you don't allow the cell phones between classes and at noon and those type of things, it's much easier if something happens on a cell phone to say you're breaking policy. Because if they're on their cell phone at all, on a social media site or something like that, well, then you can pin it down easier. I don't want to make it harder on our administrators because they have to take away a lot of phones, but at the same time, I think that it's easier to control the use if they're on it at all when they're not supposed to be. You do have a go there of, listen, you're not supposed to be on your cell phone. How did this get posted to this site? This student just brought this to a meeting, got posted. Of course, that student should have his on either, but.
I know.
So.
You won't find out till he gets home.
Yeah.
Yes. Yesterday, this
Then
was
they'll
posted at this
withdraw
time.
that.
You know. And I do think that it's incumbent upon us to teach the students proper use of it. And if proper use is migrating to the point, like in federal court, to where you have it powered off, well, then we need to teach our students that too, that they don't have it on until it's appropriate. I see multiple incidents on a weekly basis when I go to meetings of adults, to me, not properly using their cell phones. They'll have them on in meetings, they'll be texting, checking emails, and I'm talking about from the governor on down. And I think that's probably a byproduct of not being taught the proper etiquette of using those.
What if we were looking at Jack's proposal, where, just at that proposed policy, the third paragraph that begins with the word A, that says a student, if we changed that to read a student or teacher may request permission for exceptions to this policy based upon medical emergency or specific educational purpose, period. Such permission may be granted by the administration in writing for a specified period of time based upon the nature of the request. Exceptions will only be granted if it is deemed necessary by the administration.
I think that goes a long way toward what we're talking about.
I'll make a motion.
I'd
Go
like to
ahead.
add one thing, if
No,
that's
sure.
okay. I've been thinking, I've noticed how you all had in your proposed administrator's policy change that, about the, like headphones and earbuds, from 8:15 to 3:10. And I was wondering if that might be a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit, to change the time from 8:15 to 3:10. Just because of, I know my kids would have emergencies in the morning sometimes, and oh my God, I forgot that, you know, it's an easier way possibly than that 15-minute period could free up some, you know.
What time does the bell ring at the high school?
3:10,
I mean,
the
in the morning.
8:15.
So that's why I
And
was
the
kind
middle
of
school, too?
thinking.
Yes.
It'd be bell to bell, you know, so.
Well, I will say that makes the job much easier for the administrators and the teachers on duty because,
You don't have that.
Yeah.
right, you got the
During
time
that
when they,
15
And the
minutes.
bell
right, you
tells
got
the kids
15 minutes
turn
where
the
they're
phone
texting
off.
each other
Yeah.
And you're getting ready for class and,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
taking
Yeah.
phone calls from parents and, yeah, that would be tough
and
to
I appreciated
enforce.
Jack moving that from 7:30 to 8, but it would be easier for administrators
It
if it's
would.
from the
Bell
first
rang, put your phone
first
away.
bell to last
Yeah.
bell.
I just, well, I mean, I'm thinking about like, and the only reason I thought about it is I saw Steve walk in, you know, like in the mornings. But I guess if y'all are on the football field, no one's going to have their cell phone out. If they do, you can tell them to put it up. I mean, that's class. I mean,
That'd be considered class time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the one other question I have then for, do you have something with?
Well, I don't know what you guys are gonna vote on, but on the penalties, if you wanna look at that, that's great. We've added just some language there on a couple of those, and then on the repeated cell phone violations. The ability to take the phone from a student for daily, that's you talk about getting in somebody's currency. That's their currency is their cell phone, and that's a very effective discipline for kids. For me to say, okay, for the next week you have to come turn your cell phone into me, because we will have kids that have repeated violations. Even saying, only for educational uses when it's their kids are going to do it, and it'll be some of the same kids. So I would like to see us have the ability to add that. The penalties for those violations, just making sure we add that on there if we can. It's very effective.
What about that, just adding that section where you have the penalty for the violation of this policy shall be, and out of that, is that
Right.
what you're saying, that whole section?
Right, yeah.
To this bottom part of,
Including the headphones and
Headphones and
earbuds.
earbuds too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Adding that on to.
Okay.
Well, the headphones and earbuds, they're up in they're included in the electronic communication devices. There are in what I proposed. So I don't think we would need to add that
Okay.
paragraph. But just the penalties.
Penalties.
Right.
Okay.
And the 8:15.
Right.
Okay.
And then the only other thing I see that I think can be really difficult to enforce is the last part of the second paragraph where it talks about students should not be allowed to use the devices to take photographs while on the school premises. I mean, that can be controlled. Being transported by any form of school transportation, attending any school activity. I think that will really, really be difficult because you're talking about when they go to a football game or a basketball game, that's going to be impossible to enforce. If we could delete that, I think that would really make us have a good solid policy that's not too difficult to enforce, so we have the ability to enforce. I don't see a way to enforce that. We have so many kids that go to the football games and basketball games, and to be able to control if they have their cell phone out taking a selfie or whatever, would be really, really difficult.
Students on the buses, I mean, letting them listen to their music and not mess around with each other, they just sit there and, I know Kirby freaked when she didn't have her earbuds.
We removed that. We're talking about taking photographs. Talking about taking pictures. Right.
Yes, all that's left now is just the photographs, and I appreciate you amending that, but I just, from being an administrator and talking to our administrators,
Still says transportation.
it's going
Okay, we
to
just gave us?
be really difficult to
Well, yeah,
enforce.
because if they have their
Right.
phone on
I
silent
just
and they're
wanna cross
listening to
that out.
music,
Yeah.
they could easily take a picture without anyone knowing it. So it's going to be,
Activity.
I mean, like you know what I'm saying? I mean, people are going to find a way.
Well, and
And not that it's a bad,
Right.
more
And-
often than not, it's not a bad thing. It's
Mhm.
just,
And I can even see how it could possibly be controlled, on school transportation, be difficult, but the one that will be impossible is attending any school activity. And I hate for us to put any policy in place that can't be enforced.
right,
Right.
well, that's a good point.
Well, it just creates disrespect and.
Mhm.
Right, and there, if something surfaces, some inappropriate photographs or something like that, that will have to be handled, accordingly or, appropriately here.
But you don't want them pulling it out and taking pictures in class either.
No,
Like,
no.
they're
No,
not
just
using
have
it
them
on
out
the-
in
No, we
class
don't want,
anyway,
and
so-
I'm
No,
all
no,
for
just
doing
for
away
the-
with them in the classroom
Yeah.
unless the teacher has.
Yeah.
So if they're not allowed to
I'm
have them,
Just
then
on
they
the
can't
bus,
use
like in,
Well, and I'm more concerned with the attending any school activity. That
Right.
part is.
What
but-
if they're wanting to take pictures of the track meet or somebody
Right.
doing something, I mean, they're
Yeah.
watching their
Pep assembly or
sister,
something.
at a tennis tournament.
I just think that'd be so
Or pep
difficult.
assembly.
Yeah, pep assembly, football
Yeah.
games, tennis, baseball.
Doesn't seem fair not to be able to take a
Right.
picture there, but,
Well, just controlling it even.
or even controlling it,
is,
right.
Just having
For
somebody
this.
because I'd hate to be in a position where I go to watch a baseball game and I see
that's-
one of our students,
right.
take a picture of their brother and I go down and,
Give me that
say,
phone.
give me
Take
that
the phone away and then everyone else is doing it and you only have two hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that's really difficult to enforce. That's just my opinion.
Well, and partially because there will be other people that aren't students that are
They're
taking
not allowed to have
pictures.
them
So how do
at all.
you tell the difference,
Right.
that's going to be
Okay.
challenging.
Well, how about, and we can still discuss, but I'm just going to make a motion at this point. I'm going to make a motion that we strike the existing policies for wireless telecommunication devices in our student parent handbooks and enact a new policy as set forth in what we've discussed and what's been proposed to the board, with the revisions as follows. Revise the hours to 8:15 and 3:10 p.m. Strike the language with regard to taking photographs at activities. Provide exceptions for teachers when for a specific educational purpose and permission being granted in writing. And insert the disciplinary policy proposed by the administrators.
And the school transportation. Are we going to take it out?
Yeah,
Right, I
yeah.
said
The
it right.
last-
The whole
Yeah.
thing
Yeah,
about
the
the
sentence.
rest.
The last
Okay.
sentence of the second paragraph.
I'll second that. And we can still discuss, but at least we have a motion.
I think the important, because I probably didn't make a whole lot of sense, because the audience doesn't have this in writing. I think the important thing to know is this cell phones and other electronic devices have to be turned off in the classroom, in the school between 8:15 and 3:10 p.m., subject to very limited exceptions.
Educational.
Yeah.
Education.
And with written permission from the building principal.
We kept reading these in about turning it in.
Yeah, and we
Yes.
his penalties.
I just have a question real quick.
Okay.
While I'm enforcing this, which I really have no problem with it at all, a kid comes to the office and he has information on his cell phone, when I give him permission for me to see that, we're good, right, as far as, or.
Oh, if he gives you
or if he needs-
permission.
if he needs a phone number of a parent, because, they don't know phone numbers,
No,
as
they
long as
don't.
he gets permission from an administrator or she, we're good.
I think a principal's
Yeah.
discretion is.
Yeah.
Right, on
Yeah.
the kid.
Like here,
Very
say, yes, you
important.
can look at
Very
your
important.
phone.
Yeah.
And it puts in, we have in there, exceptions will only be granted if it is deemed necessary by the administration.
And I think the spirit of it is that we were going to use it for educational purposes, and that's at the discretion of the administrator.
That's right.
Any more discussion? We had a roll call?
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Oh, that's me. Hang on.
No. What's next?
I gotta look now. Number 11, discussion of and possible action on a policy to be added to the Seminole Schools handbooks concerning attire at commencement ceremonies. We don't have one, right?
No, we don't have one. The administrators didn't put one together. They deferred to the board to determine what you want to do on it.
So we have one proposed by Jack.
Yes, and again, per discussion from last month, that one sentence about law enforcement being contacted, originally it stated that law enforcement shall be contacted. I made a change to state law enforcement may be contacted. And then I also added a sentence at the end providing that it's the responsibility of the high school principal to ensure that the policy is enforced. However, other personnel may assist in the enforcement of this policy and are encouraged to do so.
Yeah, I've already spoken with Officer Williams about
I've got it. I've got it right here.
And keeping in mind that other adornments pertaining to accomplishments within the school can encompass a range of appropriate.
right. And I have worked a little bit with some members of Seminole Nation as far as possibly having a Native American club and that type of thing. Not sure if we'll be able to get that. It gets more complicated as you look at it because the process of awarding those feathers is not something the school can do. Right. And we have more than one tribe represented. And so we'll just have to see if that comes about. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So.
And I think the point is it's within the purview of the district. And I was actually walking my dog up by the high school the other night, and that there's a stone in the middle of the front yard dedicated by the Indian Club.
Yeah, yeah. And we've had a pretty strong club in the past, but if we can find somebody that will do that and will work, with the tribes to come up with a way to do that. And I've found in some of the research we've done too, it's really difficult to ascertain exactly how students are or individuals are awarded the various feathers. It's really varies pretty widely. I know that my daughter Leslie went to visit Bacone yesterday, and the president of Bacone told her before she got ready to leave that he was arranging to present her with an eagle feather. I don't really know what she did to deserve it, but she's going to get one. So, but there's nothing written as to how they receive those. And so I don't know.
Well, I would make a motion that we adopt the proposed graduation exercises policy.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Discussion of and possible action on amendments to the Seminole Schools handbooks concerning school dances and prom rules.
Now, Wade, we didn't make any changes to that.
So we just deleted the last portion about
Same sex.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's something that actually was discussed last meeting. I think
Right.
if I kind of tried to look at these two side by side, and I think that there's not very much difference at all in what's in place now versus what Jack has proposed, with the exception of, I think, just the length of skirts is basically the difference. Do you see anything else, Jack?
No, I really don't.
And so really, we're looking
I-
at...
Sorry,
Go ahead. I was
I
just
I
saying
think,
that-
I think there's a little bit more specific language as to, no attire deemed indecent due to overexposure of normally concealed body parts and/or sheer see-through material be permitted. No pants or shorts with rips or holes in it are not acceptable. No blue jeans, tennis shoes, that's in there. No obviously vulgar, offensive, racial, and/or indecent clothing. Skirts and dresses shorter than 3 inches above the knee not be allowed. That's pretty much it. And then a little bit more specific language as to the behavior.
A little more wording, but
Yeah.
toward the same end, right? And I think if I remember correctly, our last meeting, the biggest discussion was just, and the same thing when we get to dress code, is how do we go about measuring that? We don't want to put our administrators in a bad situation of how they measure that 3 inches. And that, I would really like for us to come up with some good solid way. That's why they came up with the hand
Fingertip thing.
fingertip,
It's real
because
easy
they
to see
didn't
there.
they didn't want to be down there trying to measure shorts and skirts. And so that's the only area that's still problematic to me. I don't think they have one issue whatsoever with the skirts being longer. No problem with that. It's just the methodology of
Especially that
doing that.
specific.
Yeah.
What if it's just slightly over, if it's slightly under, what if it's, and who's doing the
Yeah, and that's-
measuring, and how are they doing it?
And I've tried to think of and even in our administrative meeting, I was trying to help think of some way, and I got shot out of the water every time I thought of something. I said, no, you got to measure that too. You have to measure that too.
The way I would look at it, if you're watching students walk up and down the halls and they're carrying books, or, their arms aren't just hanging down at their sides, just in that position naturally and normally, it would be tough to eyeball whether or not that skirt's going to be a violation. But I would think 3 inches wouldn't be that tough to eyeball.
Well, I think that's probably the main thing, is the ability to eyeball it rather than have to measure it.
And I think if you did have to measure it, you could call a female to measure a
It
female.
wouldn't be a lot easier just to say, hey, come here, put your arm down.
No.
No,
I
it'd be
think
easy. It'd be
students-
easier to go get
My thing is,
a
students don't
female
want
or
to
go.
stretch their arms down long, or
But here's-
thin, and then
I-
everybody's arms are of different length, and then on some people that might have really short arms, that skirt could be showing all kinds of stuff, and other people might be having to wear things past their knees because they have really long arms.
Well, 3 inches above your knees is going to change too. I mean, you've got
Oh,
tall,
yeah,
that have
yeah.
to wear long skirts to get
But
to 3
at
inches
least
above their
3
knees.
inches is something that moms and daughters and girls can all carry something in their purse with them and say 3 inches. That's what it is. It's not the fingertip or to this first knuckle. It's 3 inches. It can't be 3 inches past the back of the knee, and you'd better not get it hemmed past that, or you'd better not have it taken up, or you'd better not buy it shorter than that, because 3 inches in the store doesn't become a different 3 inches someplace else. And
And parents are the students, and it's in our handbooks. They're expected, and I'm not saying that they do, but they're expected to familiarize, sorry, I can't say that, with themselves with the handbook and with this policy. And actually, it's already in the language for the dress code. They need to, we put it in there. They need to familiarize themselves with these standards.
When we even do
don't understand
things
what's
like
wrong with the fingertip.
a fashion show
I
and
just
stuff.
think it's more objective, and
Yeah.
it's easier if someone's trying to explain the fingertip thing to me, and I'm in a store, and I'm thinking, is that going to change depending the shoes she has on? I'm trying to get a grasp on this.
That won't change the length of your arms.
No, but it may it could change where everything, you're just kind of trying to look at all of it. But boy, you carry that little 3 inches thing around, and you're measuring, and you're going to be good. I
Your
think
fingers aren't, unless you grow.
Well,
during
but,
that
you
time.
know,
That's
is
not
your
gonna
daughter
change either.
doing her shoulders up like this or like that, or?
I understand, as a person enforcing it to say, put your arms down, no, put your shoulders down, okay, that's too short or that's fine, or to go, that might be 3 inches, hang on, let me get my stuff, or let me go get a female, or let me go get, and it's just, we can just look at it. The guys can, like Coach Rigney can look at it and say, that's too short, it's above your fingertips, instead of saying, I gotta go get 3 inches, and I gotta go get a female, and we're gonna measure it, and she's like, oh, come on, it was right there. It depends, where'd you put that on my knee? You should have put that higher on my knee, or you should have put that lower on my
And
knee.
I think they get that already with the arm thing.
So why are we changing it to?
Just as, I mean, I think you really do, to something that's a little more objective and understandable, which is what I think policy really needs to be, which is just crystal clear and.
I agree, I just
Yeah.
think it is crystal clear. I mean, I don't
And
have
I
it.
think it can be clearer, and
I don't know the best answer on this one, I really don't, because the fingertips is easy as far as looking at, because we'll be sitting there watching TV, and I'll tell Terry at the dress code, because you can tell as they're walking if their fingertips are there or not. But I do agree also that they can vary with how long someone's body is, how long their
So
arms
can the
are.
3 inches.
And so, right, that can vary too, and so it's tough. I'm not sure that there is a
Sure
best
it can.
a best way to do that. Hey, you've already got detention.
You've got somebody with long
3
legs,
inches
they're
won't
having to buy
change.
longer skirts than somebody with short
Right,
legs.
and that's what,
That's-
I mean, and
Yeah. The
I've
same
got,
thing with
and
the
I'm not gonna
fingertips.
say anybody, and I've got friends who have daughters at Seminole Middle School, because Mr. Dean, he's like you said, he's hard line on it.
Yeah.
And one particular young lady, she is tall and skinny, and it's harder for her. They have to make adjustments, and it's harder for them to find appropriate clothing, and so it's going to affect kids different ways.
Right, but I don't see a everything that's affecting the fingertip is affecting the 3 inch also. So I don't understand why we're making it harder to decide.
3
when the
inches
same.
doesn't. 3 inches doesn't vary. I mean,
It
it's always
does-
3 inches.
It does. If you're a tall girl and you're trying to get 3 inches above your knee, you've got to buy longer skirts than somebody who's. So somebody can wear a short skirt because they're short, or somebody will have to buy a long skirt
And I-
because they're tall.
Right, and I
So
think
it
that the
does
whole
vary.
objective is modesty. That's the dominant feature in
Yeah, but
clothes.
if you get a really short girl and she's got a 3 inches and she's only got a 6 inch thigh, that's, I mean, it's the same problems either way. You get the same differences either way. So why do we make it harder to judge when we could just say, put your arms down, let's see?
why don't we look at the school dress code? If I could make a suggestion, why don't we actually look at item 13 and take up the dress code, because that's really what we're discussing here,
Right.
is the arms versus the 3 inches.
I was kind of thinking we're probably covering both of
Then we can
them.
always jump over to the
Yeah.
prom issue and decide if we really want to try to enforce some sort of modesty code with prom dresses.
Good idea.
Or if we should just go to bed at 7 p.m.
Okay, so we're jumping to 13, and going back to 12.
Do I need to read
If that
13?
sounds,
You're just going to have to remind me what comes next.
and that we can never forget number 9.
I know.
Right.
I'm not forgetting 9. I stuck it in there. Okay. So we're going to stop 12.
If that makes sense.
That's
Well,
fine.
we're on the same thing, so yeah.
There
Yeah,
now.
all right, putting on the brakes here. And we're at discussion and possible, action on amendments to Seminole School handbooks concerning the school dress code. And then we will return to 12 after that.
I get it. I mean, it will affect kids differently. I mean, even though the 3 inches doesn't vary, it will affect kids differently based on their height, but it will always be no more than 3 inches above their knee, no matter what it is.
No, it's the middle of the back of the knee. That's the tricky
Okay.
part.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
where do you measure from? It's the same.
Right.
There's issues with both.
Okay.
My concern is, I see the point about creating a standard, and we have one standard with the hands, and of course, any old standard that we've had that people have complained or griped about for a long time is going to get a lot of criticism until we put in 3 inches, and then that becomes a big thing, and everyone complains, and it goes back to the hands or what. I mean, it's not going to be easy either way. My concern is enforcing it, because I don't know that maybe it's just not getting enforced. I mean, I know that everyone tries, and I'm sure there's awkward scenarios all day long, but is that the problem? Or is there really people breaking it all the time and they just don't want to say, or we can't eyeball it? Or are we talking about increments? Or
I'll speak for the administration, because we've talked about this at length. One of the issues that our gentlemen have is that it's so much better for them if a student gets sent from a teacher questioning whether or not they meet the dress code. Because what happens to them invariably when they pull a girl in and say, your skirt's too short, your top's too low, they get, what are you doing looking? Yeah, and that's just...
yeah, that's not appropriate.
And so it's so much better. No, it's not, but I mean, that's and Mr. Dean's the one that told me that he gets that on a regular basis. And so it's so much better when we have help with the enforcement from the teachers. And I'll hear teachers complain about the dress code not being enforced, but they don't send the students down. If they see that they don't meet the dress code, we need to have help from the teachers sending them down, because it's so much better for our administrators if they're not faced with that scenario of that. Now, they still need to enforce it anyway.
They still need
and
to
so even though
enforce
they get hit with that, they still do that. But they don't. It's hard for, at the high school in particular, for Mr. Rigney to see all 450 students, 230 of them.
Everyone line in, we're going to
I'll point out though that I did add, and I sent it to you and brought it tonight. I added that same provision that was in the graduation policy about the responsibility of the principal to ensure the policy is enforced. However, other personnel may and are encouraged to assist in the enforcement of the policy.
Right, and we have to have that. We
Yep.
really do. Just same thing with tardies.
That's
Cell phones in the classroom, food in the classroom, whatever it is that you decide it's going to be, we have to have help from the teachers, and it's a job of our administrators to make sure that they're getting that cooperation from the teachers. So just to address what you say, we need help to address that. We do.
But what the increment of measurement, even albeit 3 inches doesn't vary, there's 3 inches and, you can measure it. It's a measurable thing. But again, where you put it on your leg, you're still going to be faced with similar situations, similar issues. A girl can say, walk in and, skirts can be
Rolled up and down.
Yeah, wiggle down and wiggle back up too. I mean,
happens all the time.
Well, I'm sure.
Do you have experience with that? Or?
You did it really well.
Other than I don't really know that, but anyway. But I really, I think there needs to be help in the department. I mean, you all need to feel comfortable, enforcing that somehow. And kids might have learned that they can, catch you off guard by saying something like that. That's makes you feel like it's inappropriate some way. But it is your job, and you have our authority to check it, And so, I was always kind of scratching my head over what about like cheerleading uniforms? What about all of that? That always blew my mind because I thought that can't be, and we've all had daughters that were outfits like that. So anyway, so I'm not hung up on 3 inches versus hand. I think if you all, this is where I would defer to the administrators and say if you all are more comfortable with hands, then that's okay with me too, because I know there's always going to be the shoulders.
What are you more comfortable with?
But
Personally, I mean, the further away I can be from them and tell them they're breaking dress code, the better off I am. If I can, and they do. Every time I check somebody for short length, and it's always a female. Most of them are going to try to hold their shoulders up, but they know the drill.
Right.
I say, relax your shoulders. Don't turn. They'll turn their hands up or backwards.
That's
I
not
know
gonna
all
work.
the tricks.
Right.
But
And
you do
so
too.
It's
Right.
it's very easy for me to check when it's fingertip length. It's easy for them to know. And I'll say this: a lot of our students, when they break dress code, they come to school knowing they're breaking dress code, and they pack something with them to change into. And
That
so
was
it's kind of it's
clever.
along those lines of, well, am I going to get caught today? Some days, I see a lot of students, and it's, I can really do a good job on some days, you know, when the door is revolving, you know, in and out of the office,
It's a
more
group
challenge to see all those kids. And we do have some teachers that are very good about sending a kid down and saying, hey, you know, Mr. Briggs was very good about that. He'd send a kid down and say, they'd come in, and sometimes they wouldn't tell me why they were there, but you automatically know when they walk in the door. You know, you check a dress code. And it's very helpful. You know, it's very helpful. But for me personally, I don't necessarily want to take a ruler to the back of a female's leg and measure. To me, it's an awkward situation. When I can tell them to hold their hands down there, it's really not that awkward. They know the rules. They know if they're breaking it or not, and how they're breaking it. They've got their shorts pulled, you know, down when they pass me, which happens. I mean, we all know it does. You know, they see me, they're going to be right on the dress code, and then they walk up the stairs, and they may not be.
You know, what about grabbing a female teacher? I'm sorry, asking a female
Don't grab a
teacher.
female teacher.
No.
Asking a female teacher to, I mean, if you feel uncomfortable
I
about it.
already do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I already do that.
I mean, when it comes to measurement, if you got to measure, I mean, what about asking a female
Making their
teacher?
job more difficult.
Well,
No.
there'd be a lot of that measuring. It'd be a lot of me going to our female teachers and saying, will you check this out? Because I would assume we would measure every kid that we thought might be in violation.
Well, I mean, and I would hope that, I mean, if this were to be amended to this, I mean, it wouldn't take long into the school year to know this is the rule or this is the policy. I have to follow this. I mean, maybe at the first part of school you might be measuring a lot of kids, but
Well,
I
I know
would
the
think it would.
fingertip rule, and they still break
Right,
it all the
and
time.
they can pull their,
Pull and-
clothing
yeah.
slips up and down. I mean, it could be 3 inches when he measures them, they go up the stairs and it's short again. It's a little
Yeah,
bit
it's-
more than just a length issue.
Right.
It's a discipline issue.
Well,
Right.
and that's what I'll say is, it's the same thing with kids. A really good kid, no matter what discipline you hand out, it's gonna be effective. And then some of the other questionable
Right, that's true.
individuals, it's not so much. And so a lot of our kids, if I catch them on a dress code violation, they go fix it. And it's not an issue the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But there are those that, you know, every hour.
Every day, yeah.
You know, I might be saying, hey, I told you.
And whether it's
then we
3
say-
inches or fingertip, they're gonna be,
Plus, you don't want to lose instructional time by having to pull a teacher out of, find a female teacher who's not, busy. And I'm sure there's probably maybe someone on break or what, or in their planning period, but still, or, anyway, yeah.
I venture to say, Mr. Rigney, it's the same students
Oh, absolutely.
that violate the dress code.
The usual suspects.
So the measurement to me is you're going to figure that out real quick
Yeah.
because it's going to be the same students who violate it. Because you're right, the students that want to do what the rules are and follow the rules, once you tell them you're in dress code violation, you're not going to have a problem again with them.
Right. And that, I'll say this on the clothing, we did really like the part on there where it talked about the leggings, because honestly, that's our biggest
I think
dress
so
code
too.
issue. It's not necessarily the length of a skirt or shorts. I mean, that's really kind of cut and dry. It's really easy to enforce that. The leggings is where the gray area comes in. And the younger the kid is, the more appropriate leggings are. And,
Right.
So the little sister might be going to school, and does anybody really have to notice? No. But when they come to the high school, we do. And I really like the portion where that included the dress code length over the top of leggings, and it was very specific. I thought that was something that would really help us to enforce the rule on leggings. That's a real pain.
and that was included in your.
And that's something you added to?
Yeah, we added.
You added it
that
to there,
on
okay.
from the one that
Right,
we
that's
proposed.
it.
And then also where it says, we have a big issue now where we obviously have clothes for a student to change into, some, but we can't outfit every student. And there are a lot of students who, we can't get a hold of a parent to change their clothes. And so there's that, you want them to be in the classroom, but you don't want the rest of the student body to see them breaking dress code all day. And so that's where a student who checks out, or has to remain in the office, we added that to there, or has to remain in the office because of a dress code violation, and then it shows the detention and how that is kind of doled out.
I think if I remember
sorry.
correctly, that before we went to the fingertip, I think it was 3 inches. Do you remember? I think that's what it was, yeah.
Oh, I was actually talking to someone today.
Mhm.
You were assistant principal when I was
Yeah.
at the high school.
Right.
And you enforced that thing to a T.
Yep.
And I also wanted to point something else out, and what I proposed, and that's why I made a couple of changes. I had in there the natural hair color. I removed that based on last month's discussion. You enforced that when
Right,
I was
I
in
did.
high school. And then, I'm not just saying this,
No,
that's
you're
something I
right.
remember that
Right.
you, I mean, and then also on the length of the hair, I mean, I took that out, but I mean, based on, I mean, I like what I proposed, but based on the discussion, I think it would be reasonable to, on that number 1, on the policy I proposed, replace that first sentence with what's in the existing policy with regard to the length must not be shorter than the student's longest finger when arms are relaxed and to the side.
I think it does make it much easier for them because they came to me, asked to make that change a few years ago because they were really struggling with that, and they said they thought it was easy for them to enforce it that way.
So did you measure?
No, I didn't. I wasn't going to get down there and measure. I just said that's, they'd say, well, how do you know it's 3 inches? I said, I can just tell.
I don't remember the 3 inch.
Yeah.
So that is,
Didn't they measure it was the front?
It was a front, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a front.
That's what I thought.
That's what,
And
I
it's-
didn't remember the back.
Yeah.
just made.
so
we
you
just
took
went by
the
the front.
existing dress code and just added, includes clothing worn over leggings, tights. Is that the only thing that was added? Or is there anything taken out from the original?
He also added the part about, or remains in the office for dress
Oh.
code.
Yeah,
Right.
the-
Oh, I
Right.
see it now.
Violations at the bottom.
And then that's
Yeah, that's
what I asked them to
really
do,
light on
to
mine.
take the parts of it they felt like that were usable, which there were some good usable parts in it.
Right.
Jack, they took those and tried to incorporate those in there, so.
And the two policies are really pretty similar.
Yeah.
They are.
It's the
I
width
don't-
of the straps, and it really similar.
I don't really see anything else that, I mean, the ones that you provided on the dress code seems to be pretty much in line, Jack, with what you've got.
I think,
so-
pajama pants and thongs.
Yeah,
and
I don't understand
house
the
shoes.
flip-flop thing. Why can't they wear flip-flops?
Well, again, the dominant feature in all clothes is modesty, and that's part of
At
our
your
policy.
foot.
But also, safety.
Playground is a
Well,
flip-flop.
this is high school. This isn't playground.
This is
safety.
all the
Oh.
handbooks. This is not just the high
So
school.
high schoolers can't wear flip-flops.
No, I think that.
Middle schoolers can't wear flip-flops.
Right. I mean, I think the
I
safety
have
issue.
a real issue with that. I don't, it didn't hurt anything.
Yeah, I mean, when does it, I mean, is that when we act, when it hurts something?
When it's
somebody gets hurt?
distracting, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
How is this,
I would say it is distracting,
flip-flops are distracting? I-
definitely.
Yeah, but the thing you're gonna run
I
into
don't-
is a flip-flop, just a rubber-soled one, or is it a leather one that, I mean, there's
Thongs.
really.
I wear
Yeah, but
flip-flops
there's
all the
very,
time
very
that are nice.
expensive, fancy,
I wear them with dress clothes.
so.
Yeah, I think we're talking about,
I know what you're talking about, like the old rubber, the little.
Yeah.
So why are the
Yeah.
rubber
Yeah.
ones bad
But
and
what
the
about
distracting
if
if the other ones
that's all
aren't?
kids can afford to wear to school? I mean,
But why are rubber ones distracting and leather ones aren't?
uh,
I mean, it would look nice if no one wore them, but it would.
if I have, I mean, there is a difference.
Have you
I
ever
mean,
worn them? They're really comfortable.
No, I'm
I would
sorry.
love uniforms. I mean, I think, I would
would
love.
Oh, I like
I know,
that.
wouldn't
I
that
like
solve
that.
I would love to have uniforms.
Then we wouldn't
I'd
have
love
all
to
this
have
discussion.
closed-toe shoes. I would just love, I think that would be the
Yeah.
great equalizer. I would
Yeah.
love
It
to see
would.
us with uniforms. And they wouldn't have to go buy them someplace expensive. I would just, I'd love to see us, I would love to think we're moving in that direction. I'd love to hear what parents and patrons and teachers have to say about that. That's not on the agenda right now, so if it means.
But
Just a
thought.
point.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Maybe
But
that's
I-
something,
So
though, a study
someday-
of that.
Can't
yes,
support
I
that.
would
Look
love to
at
hear what
that.
more
Me
people
either.
have to say about that also, but
Because they're not going to be
Also-
worrying about their hands down.
they're not gonna, exactly.
Any of that.
Look at all the time and this is just not even a fraction, this is just not even 1% of the time that the teachers and the administrators have to spend during a normal school day dealing with these issues. I
have
very
a
frustrating.
problem with number 8 also. Male and female students wear their hair so that the entire eye is visible. I don't know
I
where
think
that
you need
came
to be
from.
able to see. I think that you need to be. I think the teachers need
Has
to
this been an
need to be able to
issue
make
in
eye
the
contact with their
classroom
students.
that teachers say they can't see their eyes?
Yeah, I had some elementary kids. It's almost like they're hiding themselves. Their hair would be down and you
Yeah.
couldn't see their face.
But as a teacher, you know if they're on task.
Well,
I mean, if I'm the
some-
teacher, I want to know if someone's on task. I'm not looking at their eyes. I'm looking to see what they're doing. Is their hand moving? Are they writing on a piece of
Is
paper?
there-
Or is it just sitting there and you're like, that hasn't moved in a while? And then you look at their eyes and
Well, but see, in the elementary schools, you're not lecturing. I mean, you're not lecturing and
To
then
me,
taking
they
notes.
hide, it's
I
a
mean,
way to hide.
yes,
But
teachers have
I
to make
just-
eye contact
to
with their
start
students.
saying the length of your bangs.
What
I don't
about
know. I just
having
feel
a
like I'm
way
in Nazi Germany.
to protect, what about having a way if, you know, if there is a problem with somebody's,
You
I
really
mean-
just compared that with the Holocaust subject
I did
in a
not.
public meeting?
No.
what I was gonna say is that, is there anything, let's see, I haven't really noticed, but would there be anything in the dress code that would allow an administrator or a teacher to, you know, ask a student? I mean, well, anybody could ask if they could, you know, maybe, you know, push their hair aside or something. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, we
Instead of making
did.
us- But that just doesn't work.
We
What about
did,
girls
but it
that wear
comes
their hair
back.
down and stuff? But I don't know, that's a toughie, but, so basically that's one of the differences between the two.
I think 6, 7, and 8 are probably
That's what
different.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, I believe, yeah. Is that right, Jack? You know on that?
Yes, sir, and then thongs
Yeah, thumbs.
and pajama
Flip-flops.
pants,
Flip-flops.
pajama pants and house shoes.
You know, I think
13 and 14.
We haven't.
Okay.
I think that's in there.
Yeah, that
isn't it?
is on there.
Yeah, I
That's
think-
on
I'm sorry.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
In
it
fact,
is.
they even went even in more detail than that,
Yeah.
so, anything that looks like bedroom attire. So,
Yeah, I think
Or
really,
boxer shorts,
I think
more
really
than
we're looking at
shorts.
6, 7, and 8, and then the flip-flops.
Yeah, I like the way you guys worded that one on number 13, so. Okay. I really don't have a problem with the one submitted by the administrators on this one, you know, because it includes a lot of what Jack had in there, but it's just mine.
Well, I would, and again, if I'm voted down, I'm voted down. It's no big deal. I can make a motion, and I'll just make a motion that we adopt the dress code I've proposed, except with the revision to number 1, that it read short skirts or dresses shorter than short dresses or skirts, thank you, shall not be shorter than mid-thigh. The length must not be shorter than the student's longest finger when arms are relaxed and to the side. This includes clothing worn over leggings/tights, no spandex, bike, or boxer shorts/pants.
And you're gonna leave the flip-flop?
I'm gonna leave that in there. just make the motion that we help that, but
The one thing about flip-flops that I'll say, and I think I said it at the last meeting, at the elementary level, the big problem with flip-flops is the playground. We get lots of toe cuts, bleeding, they break. I see them a little bit, pretty much as a safety issue. I've had them catch on the stairs at Northwood and they fall. That's what I see. I see a little bit of a safety concern. And I mean, it's a big thing at Camp Goddard, closed-toe shoes, no flip-flops. That's the big issue I see with flip-flops at the elementary level.
Or any open-toed sandal.
Or any
Yeah.
open-toed. Even just, you see the open-toed sandals now that look a lot like flip-flops, but on the back they have a strap so that they're not walking out of them or...
But you could still catch your on
you
the
could
step.
you could
and
still
stub
catch
your
yourself
toe and-
there, but that's or they walk out of them and
I
they
remember.
fall.
and at the high
They
school,
do.
at the high school, we do, it's 3 floors. The stairs are very narrow. I mean, the same thing Ms. Willis is talking about, I think is applicable to the high school especially as well. But
Let me make this statement. I think it'll be up to administrators. Once again, we're kind of putting them in a position to make a judgment, but to me, there's a distinct difference between flip-flops and just what would be considered sandals. Because flip-flops are
I agree.
rubber that the deal pushes through on the bottom side,
And
and there's very specific to me what a flip-flop is versus because there's a lot of shoes now that are similar to a flip-flop as far as going between the toes and that type of thing.
And
But they can be very
they're
dressy
fine.
and look very nice. And I think we need to be careful about distractions, but at the same time, I agree that we want our students to look as nice as possible too. And I'm not a big fan of true flip-flops either. But we need to make sure that it's understood that
What it
that
is.
the administrators aren't put in the position of having to determine this is or this isn't. I mean, flip-flops are the rubber flip-flops that
Where it pulls
Like
through.
where
and
it
there's
pulls
a
through like,
cup.
right?
Say
That's
the
what
ones
I
you
see.
wear to the pool. I mean, like
Yeah, like you
poolside
wear to the
flip-flops
shower
or
or
something
something like that.
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
the
there's-
understanding?
That's
of
what
we're
I
Yes,
think a
that's-
flip-flop is. You
that's-
can pull the thing in the back out,
Yeah.
it
Right.
breaks.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I see as a
Right.
flip-flop or
That's
my
a
That would
flip-flop
be
day
a
thongs.
to-
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But there's going to be
In
a
my
lot of
day,
gray
that's what
area
they
there
were.
because there's
There
some
will.
really nice, ones that you can, buy that are rubber, that are, leather on top and all that. So
Right.
anyway, that
And then let me ask real quickly, since Jack's made the motion, the no visible temporary body markings, we have a lot of students that have put the chieftain on their cheeks and that type of thing on Fridays.
I see that as kind of a spirit day.
I do too.
I don't see a
Yeah.
problem. That's a
Yeah.
spirit day.
Yeah.
They wear their pom outfits,
Yeah,
their cheer
that's- yeah.
outfits.
What are they
So
doing that is a problem? Why is this?
I'm not sure on that. Have you heard anything specific on that, Jack?
no, I haven't heard anything specific on that. On temporary body markings,
Mhm.
no.
do you think that would be something that might be easier to remove than to leave in, or?
I think it's a good policy. I think it's.
But what about the Spirit Day and the?
Well, I think is that kind of what we just talked about. I
So in other words, we're going to enact a policy that's written, but everyone's supposed to remember the unwritten part. That's the part. Amy makes a good point of clarification.
Okay,
It
then
needs
let's
to be
remove
crystal
that.
Then
clear.
remove
Let's remove
that.
that.
Just remove it.
Well, no, that's a good point because I've been here so long that most of the policies I know how they came about, but I won't be here forever.
Right.
You know?
Then I'll
So,
amend my
There needs to be
motion to-
somebody that knows what we have in writing is actually policy, not just what we
Yeah.
discussed here.
I'm afraid to not say that.
I'll amend my motion to room number 6 and then just renumber 7 through 14 to 6 through 13.
I'll second that. If I have mine.
Get rid of number 7. Okay, number 6. Get rid of 6. Then we'll renumber. And then this becomes 6 through 13.
Any more discussion?
Let me ask Mr. Rigney real fast. We have an issue with the body piercing. Do we have much of that
That's still
in this, what we're
It's
proposing
not
right
in
now?
yours.
There will be. I mean, we have a lot of females. with
Right
a little
here.
stud in their nose.
And then right,
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be, if we pass that, it's gonna be an issue where we'll tell kids, hey, you can't have that, and you guys are gonna get phone calls, but like I said, well, I mean, we'll do that, but it's gonna affect a lot of kids.
Do we have a lot of that?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do they,
Not
will it,
necessarily, a lot of over-the-top piercing, but like I'm saying, the little stud that's in the
I've
nose.
seen
that's-
these.
My
a
daughter
lot of
has
kids
one.
with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Wouldn't be
pretty
able to
common
wear
now.
to school.
Right.
now, some jobs that have that rule allow them to wear a clear place so it doesn't grow back and it isn't so painful, putting things in and out. I mean, that was, I never even thought about that, but I've run into that with, here lately with some family members. And so I know that, that is an issue for some people now. So would that be allowed, a clear one? Some people consider that, but if,
As written, we're saying anything in the ear is
Piercings.
okay.
Yeah, because earrings, you could have 50 earrings
Yeah,
all
lots
through
of
here.
earrings.
So what did,
Or a
Gauges.
gauged ear, that's,
yeah.
ugh.
I mean, I know, but
And they have those big
there are
holes in
some.
there.
Well, a earring might allow a gauge, to say, except for earrings, it would allow,
Earrings would be.
because you
allowed.
could have like 16 earrings and a gauge, and that would
I've
be
seen that.
what's.
But somebody can't have a
Yes.
stud in their nose.
But they can't have a tiny little, so that's the only,
But you see people with them in their tongues.
Oh, I
I've
know.
seen
I don't
people
know how
with
they
them in
do
their
it,
eyebrows.
honestly.
Someone in
That was
Chicago
only class
last
this
week.
summer
their
right
oh, I
ears
see them
bunched
coming,
up
a
like
spike
this.
going out of here,
And
up
I
there.
just thought, what is that about?
Painful.
I know, I don't understand it, but to make policy clear, that's my concern,
Well, they're not allowed to cheer with those in. I mean, I know they're not
Yeah.
allowed to participate in athletic events.
What about multiple
So-
earrings?
Well, they actually can't, like as far as basketball, they can't even have
Can't have
earrings.
earrings in either.
Oh.
They can't even have a barrette.
Right.
Oh, was that cheerleading too, I guess, with no earrings even?
Right.
I forgot, that's right, that makes sense.
Because of safety.
Right, basing
And
and stuff, yeah,
uniform.
right, right,
Looks
that's
the
true.
same.
I forgot about that.
But the earrings thing, if we're gonna do this, I think we need to be specific. Is, earrings all the way around the ear okay? Or is
No
it?
visible body
I
piercing.
think so.
except for
Hmm.
earrings.
They're earrings. I mean, I don't really, are there that many, do we see that much of that? I mean,
We might
Well, we
start
see
a
a lot,
trend.
yeah.
I mean, if it's a
And the
trend,
gauge,
so
and they
be
can
it.
have,
I mean,
they can have a gauge and they can
That's
have
what I'm
20
saying.
earrings, but they can't have a little stud in their
If
nose.
we say it's just the ear, that's pretty easy. If we say
Yeah.
just in the ear, then it would include anything in the ear.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them have
Oh, my
earrings that
daughter
might be
has-
one up here and one
Yeah.
down here.
Mine
They may not
does.
have it all filled in, but
Mine
My
does.
son has 3 right in there.
if we
Yeah.
say
I think
the ear's
that's-
fine, then that's.
Okay.
As long as they're earrings, that's my position.
So you feel like that's enforceable for you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So in the nose, excuse, I need this clarified.
Yeah.
The nose is an earring, isn't
Oh,
it?
good point.
Oh.
Well,
Well,
it's
it's
an
called a
earring that
nose
goes
ring.
in your nose.
Well, really, all
Aren't
of
they called
them are
nose rings?
earrings.
They're all
aren't they?
earrings, really, so.
So I would just say,
Except for rings in the ear.
Ear piercings.
Except for ear. No visible body piercings except for ears.
There
Like
you
you
go.
said, because we're talking about piercing, not
Mhm.
jewelry in that sentence, so.
well, that's interesting because no visible body piercing, we really have no, we should be saying
No
no
visible body.
jewelry.
Jewelry, right. I was wondering
Yes.
about that because even if they had
Well,
a piercing
what about a
somewhere
necklace?
and they took
Well,
it out,
a
there'd still be a
bracelet.
visible piercing, so. You
But
could.
necklaces, bracelets, you can't say no jewelry.
No, she
Yeah.
means jewelry piercings. I mean,
Yeah.
Like piercing, like jewelry that goes through your skin.
Piercing. Well, I guess we
Jewelry
could say
like
under the
visible
skin.
body piercings.
Yeah, that will be an issue if we say body piercings, because you'll be able to see where it's pierced.
Well, that's just
Sure.
it, it
But
does, there's a
jewelry-
hole
Just
there.
no.
Right, jewelry would be fine.
jewelry. So body piercing jewelry, is that what you're thinking? Or ornamentation or something, I don't know what you want to put.
Yeah, I would think no visible body piercing jewelry,
Yeah, I think
except for
that's-
earrings will be allowed.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Except for earrings, except for in the ears.
Except for ears.
I'd say earrings,
Except
But
for
they're saying-
earrings.
because
You're
gauges
supposed to
may
be wearing
not.
nose rings and, I mean.
Yeah. And gauges really aren't ear rings.
even
They're
notice the nose
gauge
rings.
rings. They look painful. They'll thank us later. They'll thank us later. I don't know.
This summer,
Maybe
that's what
not.
I figured.
Someone's gonna be going.
So moved, and I think Amy seconded it.
Mhm.
But
So-
is it,
We're leaving in 8, so I guess we're through, okay. All right.
so we're leaving in 8 and we're leaving in flip-flops?
But do you want to clarify on 13? I know you said, moved and seconded, just clarify rubber flip-flops or, that still bugs me. I mean, it may not bug anyone else, but. Flip-flops shall not be permitted. What about the girls after, tennis, throw their flip-flops on if they take their tennis shoes off? I mean, they're not even supposed to wear those, I guess.
Well, we're talking about at school.
In the
At
school.
school.
At the school. in
During the
office.
academic,
In this buildings and whatever.
Yeah, dress code has always been, yeah, it hasn't been like,
School
In the
uniform,
gym.
right,
Yeah,
sports.
we'd have a hard time participating in
Right.
cross-country or volleyball or anything.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, well, I guess that'll just be at the administrator's discretion, flip-flops. Referring to like rubber flip-flops, basically, that. Okay. Well,
as soon as we write rubber flip-flops, someone will say, these
I
are
know,
synthetic.
these are leather, these are
with-
Plastic.
some
Yeah,
plastic,
plastic.
right, the plastic ones, I remember those.
Synthetic polymer.
I
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had some plastic.
My daughter will be really glad she's not. No, I'm kidding. Okay, that means we can't wear them up there either, Amy. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
All right, I guess roll call.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Do we get a second?
Amy.
Amy.
Claudia Willis,
Yes.
Kay Levy,
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Jamie Mills?
No.
Amy Coclaser?
Yes.
Okay, do we want to go back to the prom now?
Oh, yeah.
Go back to
Yes.
12.
12.
I never got to go to proms.
All right, discussion of possible action on amendments to school handbooks concerning school dances and prom rolls. All right.
I think the only two differences really, correct me if I'm wrong, was just talking about the length of skirts, which,
Oh, right.
and
We're
then,
taking care of that.
yeah,
So
I
we're
think
gonna
we're
apply
taking care of
that
that
to
if
the
we can
prom rolls, too.
make that adjustment, and then the dates of,
Well, so the administrator's version, basically, would fix that?
oh, well, I think maybe.
Yeah, because the only
I
thing
think they're
they-
pretty much the same otherwise,
Yeah.
aren't they?
Right.
Fast. But not at the length.
Right. So so make sure I have this right. We've kind of already taken care of dress and let me just ask, I mean, for prom, when it says appropriate dress will be worn to prom, do you just kind of, or whoever's on duty, enforce the normal dress code, school dress code, or what's the?
Well, we've always considered it an activity, along the lines with, like our cheerleader skirts may not necessarily meet dress code. The prom is kind of a whole new beast because, we can we don't see them until right before the prom. We don't see their attire until they're coming in. And so that could create a problem with, you know, denying a kid at the door saying, no, you can't come in. And then there will be, you know, we'll have some parents come up and say,
Consequences.
you know, I bought this 300, I don't know how much dresses are, you know, son, so I have no clue, but expensive dress, and you're not gonna let them come in. It's something to discuss. It's more difficult to enforce because it's just not an easy fix.
Yeah, that's very true, because we don't see them until they show up for the promenade. And some of them don't come to the promenade, some of them just show up at the prom.
A lot of them don't come to the prom.
Right. And so the first time that you see them is when they walk in that door with their date.
What a-
So it's tough to.
What about, in what I proposed, number 8, what about adding that, except that last sentence, instead of the skirt stretch is shorter than 3 inches, doing it what we've done in the dress code, the sport, the skirt stress is shorter than mid-thigh.
Or they're, with their arms down.
Right.
Right, with the arms down and all that.
We'd have to really make sure that girls, parents, everybody, not just the girls, everyone, and parents, because we have a lot of our boys that bring girls from other districts. I mean, everyone would have to be so well educated on it.
Yeah, that's a huge
You're
point,
still
because
gonna
we
have
have a
mad
whole lot
parents.
come from other districts. That's right.
They would just have to, and it's something we'd have to be talking about all year. I mean, every chance you get with those
Yeah.
parents, every place. Because it wouldn't be fair to vote for something like that or pass something like that and just be setting our administrators up to have to deal with that nightmare.
Right.
Or setting our students up to be in that situation. That
Yeah,
wouldn't
they
be.
spent all day getting ready.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So we would just have to be, we'd be having to make a decision at a time like this. So this is the time to do something like that, not to put it off until whenever, if we're going to do it. We just have to be certain.
Yeah, and I'm all for the modesty, I really am. But this is very problematic to enforce because of the fact we don't see them until they show up. And a lot of them aren't our students. That's an excellent point. It makes it really,
Well,
really
and just
tough.
because they can get in the door doesn't mean they're going to keep everything on that they wear in the door.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
You know, the dress they wear in, you know, that kind of thing. May not be the one they wear out of the bathroom.
What about we just
Just-
do away with prom?
Oh, my gosh.
Hey,
I thought Mr. Crawford said last time that they did have people that wore jeans and tennis shoes, but they were nice and they
We
didn't
do.
have an issue with
We
it.
do. We
When I
have kids
have
that
a
do that,
problem
and
with
that's something but once again, it's difficult when they show up then
Right.
to say anything
And they
about
might
it.
have their nicest jeans on they
Right,
have. And
or they have, you know, you see a lot of the kids now will have, you know, jeans pressed really nice with a tuxedo jacket over the top and, you know, maybe boots, and then they look nice.
Yeah, I hate to
Yeah.
rule that out.
Well, but we actually have that in there, no jeans or no tennis shoes.
I see that's in the
But
old one.
we haven't really figured out how to enforce that when they show up that way. And you'll see kids that really look nice in their tuxedo, but they're wearing Converse tennis shoes with them.
Right.
Girls
Does it-
wearing
and-
Converse with their dresses on.
Yeah.
Some of them,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, and it
Because
looks.
it doesn't really cause, you know, I mean, people have done that in,
Right.
you see weddings now, where they do stuff like that. I mean, so,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, sounds kind of crazy, but.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Doesn't
if
hurt
it's not something that we're
That's not
prepared to enforce wholeheartedly, I don't think it should be in there.
Right.
Yeah, it seems a little.
Yeah, I
outdated.
agree.
Because like, well, they don't make us do that, so maybe they won't make us do this either.
Well, and that's an issue that we really need to address, because if we have things in there that we haven't enforced.
Right. Do
yeah,
we want to
which-
enforce them or
which
do we want
we
to take
do.
them out?
Right, better off to
Right.
take them out.
Right.
Right.
If we don't feel like we can enforce them, they're better off not to be in
Right.
there.
Because you do say appropriate dress will be worn to the prom, and you know,
Right.
typically jeans aren't worn to a prom anyway, so.
That they do.
Have you ever, I mean, anyone here, does anyone ever remember having someone leave because they weren't dressed appropriately?
You know, I'll say, I mean, and I wasn't in high school that long ago, the prom
Almost
dresses
12
were
years.
long.
Yeah, I wish they'd go back to that.
That was the style. And now, I mean, I'll say I went to Promenade, and in my opinion, there was a lot of inappropriate dress, and things have changed. So, but I mean, what I deem as appropriate might not be, is different than.
I agree. I like
I mean,
the long prom dresses.
I mean,
Me too,
so-
but
Times
yeah, it
have
was weird. It
changed,
was
unfortunately.
shocking.
That's
when
why
they
I feel
changed.
like there ought to be some kind of. That's why I propose some kind of.
Well, I don't disagree with you one bit, and it's not
Fashion
just at
dictates.
prom, but even at homecoming
Yes.
assemblies. I mean, it's the same kind of situation. We don't see them until they come out. They're being introduced, and there's some of them they don't meet dress code, but it's so hard to do anything about it because here
Well,
they come walking out being introduced, and you haven't seen them until then.
Well, I think like Ms. Kalklaser said, you know, we're 9 months away, or we're 10 months away from the next prom. So getting something out there early and then just reminding the students about it. I mean, juniors start planning prom
Early.
early.
Yeah, it'll take a lot of communication to get, and one of the issues she brought up, that's a very, very valid point, is students from other schools. That, you know, and I'm not at all opposed to it. I'm just, you know, trying to brainstorm how do we enforce this. You know, do you remove them? I mean, what do you do if they don't? If it doesn't meet the dress code, you know, and in particular if it's somebody from another school. It's
Well, and if they want to wear nice, jeans, and that's all, that's all they can wear or they can afford, I don't want them to miss the prom.
That's right.
I agree.
Or the shoes. I don't want to do that because some can't. They can't go out and rent a tux or buy a suit.
And I'm for taking that. That's in there now. I'm for taking that out.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I think, you know, our standards of modesty should apply even on prom night. I mean, that's kind of what I'm
But
getting
it's hard
at.
to enforce. It should.
Yeah,
but
I
it's just hard
agree.
to enforce.
I agree, but how to enforce it's the difficult part, really isn't. And I just hate for us to put our administrators in
I
a really
agree.
difficult position.
Well, and we don't want, and there are some that would like the idea of being kicked out of prom.
Well,
You know, we don't want to be delivering on that either, you know, and giving them an excuse to go off and.
Why don't we put appropriate in giant letters? No, put appropriate in caps and then put inappropriate dress. I don't know. I mean, we could even put
Maybe
a
at the
statement
discretion
at the
of the
discretion of,
administration.
of disruptive. I don't know. That's difficult. Okay.
It's really. I mean, I'll say when I
yeah.
when I was in high school, the problem was alcohol. Kids coming to the prom drunk, and they were removed.
Right.
Yeah, I
mean,
think.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
It's
we
prom.
enforce that.
Well,
Yeah.
Go to
I
high
can
school
speak to
together.
that. That's much easier because
To control.
we usually have an officer on duty
Right.
at the door, and
That's illegal.
they're.
Well, I understand. Yeah, but those kids spent a lot of money on their tuxes and their dresses, and they made the
They're not getting thrown out
decision.
for that, though.
Well,
Well, but they're getting thrown out.
I've had to remove students in that situation, as you know, but that's easy because you
Mm-hmm.
call the parent and say, "Listen, your boy or your girl
Well,
has been drinking.
It's illegal.
They're going home."
Right.
And you have
Right.
no
That's
argument
easy.
whatsoever from them.
Right.
If you call a mom and say, "Your girl's skirt is too short," and
Yeah.
she helped her pick it out and pay for it, that's a different situation. Yeah. And it's tough, and I want the same thing you want on this, Jack, but I don't know how to enforce it. That's the whole issue because
How
that's
about
just the issue.
tasteful and appropriate dress will be worn to the prom? And let's leave it on
Kay
that.
gets to decide.
No, I'm just kidding. And
Well,
hopefully
you
they
know-
didn't watch this
I
show.
think
and do this.
communication is a big part of this.
Well, and here's something we can do this year and see if it works, is have
With the
really
kids.
conversations with them, say, you know, listen, guys,
Right.
the skirts have been too
Right.
short. And if you don't lengthen them, then
You're gonna
we're gonna put a
force a
policy in place
policy,
that
yeah.
forces you to. So you need, what you do this year.
Right.
course,
They got
it's-
some
And I would
freedom
also,
right now.
I could
They
also,
wanna keep the
I would also
freedom. They
mention,
need
I mean,
to-
you don't have to, I mean, obviously you don't have to do this, but, the board members get invited to the prom every year.
Yeah.
And tell them, I'm gonna come.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
And Jack will escort you out of there.
Well, I mean, that's honestly, that's something we can actually use and say, listen, guys, this is gonna happen if you don't do things right. I don't know if what kind of reaction we'll get out of the
The
seniors.
seniors,
but
I'm
the
gonna say the
juniors,
seniors
yeah.
will wear them up to their rear ends and half of
Yeah.
the juniors, because they're
Yeah.
gonna have a policy.
Well, I just think communication's a big part of it, and whoever, I don't know who the junior, senior sponsors are, and I know that changes, but I think they just meet with the students, and they talk about modesty and
Yeah.
appropriate, tasteful dress for the prom, and they can use the board as, for that, and I think for students who come from other schools, whoever their date is needs to be there and hear the same.
I agree.
They're going to be under our guidelines.
Right.
They're our guest.
I think it's worth a shot, see if we can try that.
And let's give them a chance
Mhm.
to,
Allow them to have their
Right.
freedom,
Yeah.
but know that, we're,
Well, and see, we've already talked about how we want to get the dancing straightened out, so maybe we
Okay.
can get
And
both
then-
these straightened out without having to put it in something
I mean, they're-
that ties our administrators down to doing something that could disrupt more than anything.
And I
Because
would,
dress
I would
leads to
imagine,
dancing. The
It
dress
does.
sometimes will lead to
Yeah.
that
and I would
dancing.
imagine the dancing
That
is
leads to
easier to
this.
enforce, because
It
you
is.
can
We
just go
can-
up to them and say,
Turn the
knock
music
that
off.
off. And
Yeah, and we can change the music and we can control that either. We've had a few
Can't go
issues, but
shopping
that's,
with them.
that's easier to control
Yeah.
than the
You're not
dress.
kicking kids out either.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It doesn't cost anybody any money for me to go say, you
Right.
can't dance like that.
Exactly.
You can go sit at the table if you
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah.
the rule, but.
Well, and we have support from parents on that, because you can even say, do you think your parents would approve you dancing like that? Let me get my cell phone out.
I was gonna say, that's where the cell phone comes
Let's do a selfie.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, I personally like we have a policy and that you all presented, omitting item 10 where you take out dates will be traditional in nature. Dates must be of the opposite sex. You've taken that out. But I would like to make a motion, unless you all want to discuss some more, that we keep the same policy that we have, omitting that number 10, which was the dates will be in traditional nature, and then eliminating no blue jeans, tennis shoes, et cetera, will be allowed, striking that. Do you want to add anything to, if we want to put appropriate and capital, I don't think that makes a big difference, so I would just leave it like that,
I'll
personally.
second that.
Is roll call?
I'm sorry, was that Amy?
Yes.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
No.
Amy Coclaser?
Yes.
Claudia Willis?
Yes.
That was 12, right? Okay.
Thanks.
So now we're going to 14.
13, then back to 9.
Do what? 13?
No.
No, we did 3.
14, then back to 9.
14, okay. Discussion of possible action on amendments to the Seminole School handbooks concerning consideration of transfer applications.
Administrators have no recommendation on that.
Okay, and I will just point out, I emailed it to you today, I made one change. Instead of the application shall be reviewed, may be reviewed
Yeah,
in
that's good.
executive session per a motion and subsubsequent approval by the
Excellent.
board.
Yeah, I like that change.
Okay.
That kind
Yeah, I
of
do
gives
too.
you freedom.
Yes.
I like that.
Just gives us the ability.
Right.
Instead of a.
I think it's good.
We don't have
Mandate.
to, right, right. I'll make a motion to accept the amendment that Jack proposed on the transfer policy.
I'll second that.
Claudia Willis?
Yes.
Amy Coclaser?
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Yes.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Now back to 9.
Now back to okay. Let me cross that off. 9, discussion of possible action to approve the student parent handbooks and board policy book. Is there anything in that we haven't discussed?
Well, I bet Amy can come up with a way to word that.
There is, well,
Go,
I
Amy.
was just, there was one thing I wanted to take a look at. There were a few little changes, and I'll try to make it quick. On the detention hall rules, I'm looking right now, Seminole Middle School, it says it's middle school, that we're
Right.
proposing the Saturday school. Let me see. Here I am. And I would just say, it would help so much on these. You all may have just finished working on this right before the meeting.
Right.
But it really would help if we could have these,
Okay.
if you had more time with this, if we'd had more time to be able to look it over.
Right.
I know that when we're trying to propose policies, we're trying to give as much time as possible. I know that administrators probably didn't look at this, and they were trying to put all of this together in response to the ones that Jack raised also, so I don't mean 2 meetings ahead of time or anything, but just even if it was right after that meeting, if we could have had a little more time, that would have been helpful.
As soon as possible, anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
anything helps.
All right, sounds
good. In my Post-it notes over here.
Okay.
When we say that they're not going to be able to participate in extracurricular activities during Saturday school, do we mean just before they go to Saturday school? Do we mean after? I think we need to be a little more specific there. I think we can approve the policy, but I think there needs to be clearer language there.
Yeah,
Same
he
concern.
didn't talk to me about this when I just saw that too. I think his intent, because it's not, I'm not sure it's the same at the, is it the same at the high school?
It is. What we've been doing is because Saturday school was in lieu of ISD, and the rule for ISD was they had to complete ISD before they could participate. It was the same rule for Saturday school. They had to complete their Saturday school before they could participate. So if a student was assigned Saturday school on a Thursday, they wouldn't be able to play until that next week after they had completed their discipline. But we can be very specific on that.
Okay. you
So we
might
could say
just-
until
So
it's
this is
completed,
just
Yeah.
until
putting in
their
place what we were doing.
term, whatever they
Yeah.
call
Okay.
it.
'Cause
Until
I knew that we were
completed.
doing that, and I didn't know what the change was.
Right, the language just wasn't in there.
Okay. It's
You might
putting
just
in
say
what was practiced.
until assignment completed
Okay.
Yep.
under the Saturday school. And we'll
Well,
just consider that a change, if that sounds like a good change to you. Then under the page, and we're still kind of looking in that what's labeled middle school section, where it says checking in and checking out, it says parent guardians must come in personally to check students out. You've added that other people, designated persons, can check students out for lunch and other things. I think you need to say in that paragraph 2 that parent guardians or designated persons must come in. You know how you've opened that up? Not you, just you. I don't mean to just be staring at you.
I read through his, and is he, I don't have it with me.
It's all right.
I just read it.
Yep,
I
it's,
think he was talking about people that were on their checkout list.
yeah, it says a student may be checked out for lunch by a primary or non-household contact. And so parent guardians or other contacts
Right. That would be-
referenced above.
Right.
I'll put that in there. That sounds a little better, like we're not creating a new class of people there. Must come in personally to check students out. Okay. Does that sound, it's not creating something new, it's just making it sound less like, it's just more consistent. And then when we get to the high school, on the weighted grades and the college courses, I was wondering how this came up with the 3, 4, and 5. Any concurrent class where the number ends in 3, 4, and 5 will receive a full year's credit.
I think that's just to bring consistency to what they've been doing
I
already.
think
Some of
what
these,
they've been doing.
some of these they actually kind of put in practice, and then they change the policy afterwards, just like with the Saturday school and not being able to participate until they completed it.
But that's not, I mean, as recently as last year even, that's not what they've been doing. They've been doing that for college algebra, I know, and Comp 1 and Comp 2 possibly, but they weren't doing it for every course that
They
ended
did
in a 3, 4, or
Kirby's.
5.
I
Now, they
think
may
Kirby's.
have done that for Kirby's, but I don't know that we ever voted on a policy for 3, 4, or 5.
Well, I don't think there was, that's what I'm saying, it wasn't a written
Yeah.
policy, but they were doing it.
So any,
Any,
they didn't do it for English. So English Comp 1 was always just a semester. Okay.
That's
so
true.
like,
Yeah,
even
'cause-
with just her
That's-
computer class that she took in the summer, she got a full year's credit for it because it
Oh,
was.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
See,
agree
that's
with that.
I think that's a mess.
I didn't have any idea till I went in there and I was like, well, what do these numbers mean? She goes, oh, well, she got a full year. I was like, really? I
See,
didn't have any idea.
I think I would wonder under whose direction that was taking place. Because that's not been policy or, and don't mean to look at you again, Mr. Rooney. I am looking
He's like,
around
I
the
am
room.
good.
I'm doing, I'm going to stare at these plaques back behind my head now.
I put this in for that reason, because.
For us to discuss.
Right.
Okay.
Because it has been a practice at the high school. That's what's been going on, and it actually, we had the discussion on this last year. We basically just need to nail this down, is why it's in here.
Yes, but I looked today, because I'd been out of town, and I apologize for just looking today at my board packet, but there are things like, and no criticism of the arts here, but crafts. A semester course in crafts
For 3
that
and
would
4.
that would receive basically double credit and weight on a transcript that, just a really tough course at the high school, a semester of, a grade in that course would be reflected for one semester on your high school transcript. And I could be really lousy in crafts and end up with a horrible grade in there that would show for an entire year, even though I just went to crafts 3 times a week at the college for one semester. To me, there's not a rhyme or reason between just saying 3, 4, 5 ending. And I think if we've got to make a decision on this now because handbooks have to be printed, my recommendation would be if we're looking to simplify it and put it into some sort of objective format that a registrar and a counselor and a principal and a board member and a parent can all look at and say, I'll come up with the same result, I would say I would just take out that second paragraph.
Are there any classes that would consider a full year,
I
like a 4 or 5 hour course?
I
I mean, they offer Calculus 1 that's a 5-hour course, and they cover everything that the high school covers in a year.
I could see that the case for that on a case-by-case basis would make a lot more
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Like, we just started a Spanish class, too, that's now 5 hours, and it's supposed to cover an entire year of Spanish.
But I know that in college, the classes do, for example, I know that a lot of the courses are 5 hours long. I don't know that that is supposed to cover actually what a year of a high school course covers.
Well, yeah, that's not their,
I mean,
that's
I
not their
don't know
goal.
that it-
Right.
it-
That's
I
not their
don't-
goal, right. And so
I-
I think it might be something to look at, though. If you have a 5-hour Spanish course, I have no idea how much they cover in a year at high school. I have no idea how much they cover at college. I do with the calculus, I know for a fact, but I think that might be something we look at.
Yeah, I think these are things that come up when we're trying to, apples and oranges, and we don't want to slight anything, but at the same time, we would really be having to look at it on a course-by-course basis, and
Not with this
not
short window
not with this short window right this minute.
to get the handbooks.
Right, to get the handbooks, and then also at the same time, I mean, you're familiar with certain courses over there, and I can look at the catalog and see what it says about certain courses over there.
I would think we would have our Spanish teacher look at the Spanish curriculum and have English teachers look at English curriculums and see if they cover the same stuff. I wouldn't want to make that judgment.
I just know that, and I've been very happy with the concurrent program at the college. I'm very happy that we have the college here, and it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. And I don't know that because they cover so much more in a shorter time period that, well, it's not the same experience. No one's saying it's the same experience as taking it a year long. I don't know that it's good for students who either do well in it or do not do well in it, or just do fairly well in it, to have that reflected double on their transcripts. I don't know that that makes sense. I mean, it's going to be reflected on their college transcript as a semester and for the right number of hours that the college has assigned to it. We're going to give high school credit for it. I just don't know that we need to be in the business of trying to decide how many semesters worth of credit to give for it. Now, that said, that's not to say I couldn't see myself voting to acknowledge the amount of time and effort that goes into taking a 5-hour calculus course that covers all of that material in one semester. I do say, though, that I don't want to see us as a secondary school district spending our time and resources trying to analyze each one of those courses and trying to determine how to reflect that on our high school transcript.
Well, the State Department even tried to do that and they gave up.
And they gave up.
Yeah. It's tough. It is trying to decide which one deserves, and even who's teaching it. Even one teacher, you really working your tail off for that 5 hours, and someone else you might not.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing in our high school courses too. We talk about some of our AP teachers really, really tough, and others weren't as tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have that same issue that comes out there. Yeah.
Sure.
But I don't know what a good answer is either. This is something we've kind of wrangled with. So.
I'd say for now, I mean, due to the fact that we don't have oversight, we don't oversee all these courses that end in 3, 4, and 5. We don't even know what all of them are. I wouldn't say we're really in a place, and I wouldn't recommend us even approaching that subject at this point.
Well, it's a mixed bag because those students that take that, they can get double credit for it, but they also run a really high risk of not having a good grade.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because we've had a lot of really good students that all A's at our place, but they'll come up with a B or something out there, and then that counts double. So,
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the elementary handbook change submitted by Mrs. Sneed, that we adopt the detention hall rules submitted by Mr. Dean, the in-school detention and Saturday school change suggested by Mr. Dean, with the modification on Saturday school that they not be allowed to participate in extracurricular activities until the assignment's completed, the possession or use of tobacco products change, and the semester test exemptions. The curriculum, the closed campus, and the checking in and outs changed with the changes submitted by Mr. Dean, with the other contacts language referenced above that I'd already mentioned. Then the high school handbook, I would suggest we adopt the college courses change with respect to the first paragraph only, which I believe is what we have right now, and eliminate the second paragraph at the present time.
I'll second that.
Go ahead. No, yeah, well, I was going to ask, you can still second and then still discuss
Okay,
it.
that's right.
Another procedure that happens that I don't think I've ever seen in writing is deciding how many classes that the students don't have to take at the high school because they're taking this many credits at the college.
That's actually dictated by the state.
Is
on
that the state thing? Okay, so that's why I haven't seen it in here.
Right.
Okay. Because I know if they took a 4-hour class, they got out of 2 classes at
Right.
the
Yeah, because
high
they can
school.
only have so much of a workload.
Right.
Yeah, now the principal can give them an exception for that, but otherwise, the more courses they're taking out there, the fewer they can take because they can't have
Right.
over so many
Right.
hours in the semester.
Okay. So that is written down somewhere?
Yes,
Just not here?
it is.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds
And,
good.
Kay, you might want to, on the second, I also need to add to my motion, the
Oh,
high
sorry.
school in-school detention change also.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right, until
Where will
assignment is
ISD be
completed,
now?
right?
Will it still be in the dungeon? Okay.
What'd you say?
It'll be
ISD
downstairs
Where
in the
ISD would be.
basement.
Oh,
would be-
oh.
okay.
Well, I still second that motion. Are you still
Correct.
making the motion?
I
Is it
think-
still going?
I think I'm through.
Okay.
Then all other changes that we voted on with the
Yes. Yes, that's it.
All right, roll call?
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Frazier.
Yes.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
All right, possible executive session to discuss the employment of those certified and/or non-certified personnel listed in the agenda items 19 and 20 pursuant to 25 OS Section 307B1.
I make a
Yes.
motion that we go into executive session to discuss the employment of those certified and/or non-certified personnel listed in agenda items 19 and 20.
I'll second.
Claudia Willis.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Frazier.
Yes.